Victoria Hale stood at her 40th floor window, overlooking the city beneath her, power at her fingertips, but her heart hollow. Lucas Bennett knelt on worn wooden floors, his carpenter's hands calloused from years of work, struggling to keep his small shop from collapse. When they met, the lines between their worlds began to blur. A secret love bloomed, between a single father and a billionaire, but when the truth was exposed at the family dinner table, everything threatened to fall apart. Follow my story to the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Lucas Bennett's hands were steady as he ran the plane across the oak board, watching thin curls of wood spiral away from the blade. The workshop smelled like sawdust and machine oil, familiar scents that had surrounded him since his father first put tools in his hands at age 7. Now 32, with calloused palms and a back that ached by midday, Lucas worked alone in the small space his grandfather had built 60 years ago. "Dad!" The voice cut through the whine of the table saw. Lucas looked up to see his daughter Mia standing in the doorway, her backpack hanging off one shoulder, dark hair escaping from a ponytail that had clearly been neater this morning. "Hey, Bug." He killed the saw and pulled off his safety glasses. "How was school?" "Mrs. Patterson says I need a permission slip signed for the field trip." Mia walked over and dumped her backpack on his workbench, narrowly missing a half-finished cabinet door. "And Tyler brought cupcakes for his birthday, but I told him I couldn't have one because you said sugar before dinner makes me crazy." Lucas laughed and ruffled her hair, earning an indignant squawk. "You're not crazy, you're enthusiastic. That's what Mom used to say." The comment landed softly, without the sharp edge it used to carry. 3 years since the accident. 3 years of figuring out how to be both parents, how to braid hair and pack lunches, and remember when picture day was. 3 years of Mia's face losing that hollow look and starting to smile again. "Yeah," Lucas said quietly. "She did." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "Come on, let's get you a snack. Then I'll sign that permission slip." They crossed the small yard between the workshop and the house, a 2-bedroom craftsman that needed a new roof and better insulation but was paid for, which counted for everything. Inside, Mia headed straight for the kitchen while Lucas gathered the mail from the counter. Bills, more bills, a flyer for a hardware store, and a padded envelope with his mother's handwriting. "What's Grandma send you?" Mia asked through a mouthful of apple slices. "Don't know yet." Lucas tore open the package. Inside was a birthday card. His birthday was still 2 weeks away, and a note in his mother's familiar scrawl. "Lucas, I need to ask you a favor. My friend Victoria is having some work done on her house, and the contractor she hired did a terrible job. She needs someone trustworthy to fix it. I told her you'd take a look. Her address is below. Please call her. Love, Mom." Lucas frowned. His mother had mentioned Victoria before. Someone she'd known for years, some kind of business connection. He'd never paid much attention. But the tone of the note was insistent in a way his mother's requests rarely were. "Everything okay?" Mia was watching him with those dark eyes that saw too much. "Yeah, just Grandma being Grandma." He tucked the note in his pocket. "Finish your snack and start your homework. I need to make a phone call." He stepped out onto the back porch, pulling out his phone and the note. The number his mother had written was answered on the second ring by a voice that was crisp, professional, and definitely not expecting a carpenter. "Victoria Hale." Hi. This is Lucas Bennett. My mother is Margaret's son." The voice shifted, warming slightly. "She told me you might call. Thank you for reaching out." "She said you're having some trouble with a contractor?" "That's putting it mildly." There was a pause, and he heard papers rustling. "I had custom built-ins installed in my home office 3 weeks ago. They're already separating from the wall, the drawers don't close properly, and I'm fairly certain they used the wrong type of wood for the climate here. I've called the company 6 times, and they keep giving me excuses." Lucas could picture it already. Cheap materials, rushed work, someone who took the job for a big paycheck and didn't care about the quality. "I could take a look, give you an assessment. When works for you?" "Would tomorrow be too soon? I know it's short notice, but She caught herself. "I'd appreciate it." There was something in her voice, just for a second. Not quite desperation, but close. Like someone used to being in control who'd found herself in a situation she couldn't fix by writing a check or making a phone call. "Tomorrow's fine," Lucas said. "What time?" They settled on 10 in the morning, and Victoria gave him an address in Belmont Heights, the neighborhood where the houses had gates and circular driveways, and probably cost more than Lucas would make in his entire lifetime. He hung up and stood for a moment, looking out at the yard where Mia's bike lay on its side next to a soccer ball and a bucket of sidewalk chalk. Different worlds. But his mother had asked, and he didn't say no to his mother. The next morning, Lucas dropped Mia at school and drove across town with his toolbox rattling in the passenger seat. Belmont Heights announced itself gradually. The streets got wider, the trees got taller, the houses got further apart. By the time his truck pulled up to the address Victoria had given him, he was definitely in a different zip code. The house was modern, all clean lines and glass and steel, set back from the street behind a low stone wall and a hedge that looked like it got trimmed with a ruler. Lucas parked his beat-up Ford next to a sleek black sedan and grabbed his toolbox, feeling acutely aware of the sawdust on his boots. The front door opened before he could knock. "Lucas?" Victoria Hale was not what he'd expected. Somehow, he'd pictured someone older, someone who looked like she belonged on the cover of a business magazine. Severe suit, perfect hair, the kind of woman who never smiled. Instead, she was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked expensive but not showy. No makeup that he could see, shadows under her eyes like she hadn't been sleeping well. "That's me." He shifted his toolbox to his left hand and offered his right. "Thanks for having me out." Her handshake was firm, confident. "Thank you for coming. I know this probably seems ridiculous, calling someone across town to fix a cabinet." "My mom doesn't ask me for favors lightly," Lucas said. "I figure if she's asking, it matters." Something flickered across Victoria's face, surprise maybe, or relief. "Come in. The office is this way." She led him through a house that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Everything was clean, modern, carefully chosen. But it also felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with the minimalist furniture. No photos on the walls, no clutter, no sign that anyone actually lived here. The office was on the second floor, a large room with windows overlooking the backyard and built-in shelving that covered 2 full walls. Lucas could see the problem immediately. "Jesus," he muttered, setting down his toolbox. "That bad?" "Yeah." He moved closer, running his hand along one of the shelves. The wood was already warping, pulling away from the wall in places. When he opened one of the drawers, it stuck halfway, the track bent and misaligned. They used pine. In a climate-controlled room, maybe it'd be okay, but with the humidity here, this was never going to last. "Can it be fixed?" Lucas crouched down, checking the joints. "Fixed? No. Rebuilt? Yes. But it'd basically mean tearing all this out and starting over." Victoria was quiet for a moment. When he looked up, she was staring at the shelves with an expression that wasn't quite anger, wasn't quite frustration, more like exhaustion. "Of course it does," she said softly. Lucas stood, brushing sawdust off his knees. "I can give you a quote if you want. It won't be cheap. This is a lot of custom work. But I'll do it right. Materials that'll last, proper joinery, finish that won't crack in 5 years. How long would it take? 3, maybe 4 weeks if I work on it part-time. I've got other jobs lined up and I need to work around my daughter's schedule." "Your mother mentioned you're raising her alone." "Yeah." Lucas picked up his toolbox again, suddenly uncomfortable. "It's just the 2 of us." "That must be difficult." "We manage." He didn't want to talk about Mia, about Jenna, about any of it. Not here, in this pristine house that felt like a museum. "Look, I can email you a quote by tomorrow. You can think it over, get other estimates if you want." "I don't need other estimates." Victoria crossed her arms, looking at the ruined shelving. "Your mother said you're the best carpenter she knows. I trust her judgment." "She's biased." "Maybe. But she also doesn't lie." Victoria turned to face him. "If you can start next week, the job is yours." Lucas hesitated. It was a big job, the kind that would keep his lights on for months. But something about this whole situation felt off balance. The empty house. The woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days. The way she was so quick to say yes without even seeing a number. "You sure?" he asked. "You don't know what I'm going to charge yet. Whatever it is, it's worth having it done properly." She met his eyes, and for a second he saw something raw there, something vulnerable. I just want one thing in my life to work the way it's supposed to. The honesty of it caught him off guard. He nodded slowly. Okay, I'll send you the quote tonight. Start demo next Monday if that works. It works. She walked him back downstairs, and at the front door she paused. Thank you, Lucas, really. Just doing my job. No. Victoria shook her head. You're doing me a favor, there's a difference. Lucas didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and headed back to his truck. As he pulled away, he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her still standing in the doorway, watching him leave. Something about the picture bothered him. This successful woman in her expensive house, looking so completely alone. He shook it off and headed back to his shop. Different worlds, he reminded himself. He was here to fix her cabinets, nothing more. Lucas started the demo work on Monday morning, arriving at Victoria's house at 8 with his toolbox and a shop vac. She let him in wearing yoga pants and a t-shirt, her hair wet like she'd just showered. Coffee? She offered. I'm good, thanks. I'll try to keep the noise down. I work from home most of the time. Noise is fine, she gestured toward the office. Everything in there is fair game. I moved all my files and equipment into the guest room. Lucas spent the morning carefully removing the old built-ins, setting aside any hardware that could be reused and piling the warped wood in the hallway. It was mindless work, the kind that let his thoughts wander. He found himself thinking about Victoria, about the contradiction between her expensive house and her casual clothes, the way she'd talked about wanting something to work the way it was supposed to. Around 11, she appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. I know you said you didn't want any, but I made too much. She held out one of the mugs. Consider it a bribe so you don't judge me for the disaster you're cleaning up. Lucas took the coffee and sat back on his heels. I'm not judging. I've seen way worse. Really? Last month I redid a kitchen where the contractor had installed the cabinets without actually attaching them to the wall. Just set them in place and hoped gravity would do the rest. Victoria laughed, a real laugh that changed her whole face. Okay, I feel slightly better. She settled on the floor across from him, leaning against the doorframe with her own mug. For a moment they both sipped coffee in silence, and Lucas realized it wasn't an awkward silence. It was comfortable, easy. Your mother talks about you a lot, Victoria said eventually. Oh, great. What embarrassing stories has she been sharing? Nothing embarrassing. She's proud of you. The way you're raising Mia, building your business, all of it. Victoria tilted her head, studying him. She said you turned down a job with a big construction company to keep your grandfather's workshop open. It wasn't much of a decision. That place is Mia's history, my history. I couldn't let it go. A lot of people would have taken the steady paycheck. A lot of people aren't trying to raise a kid on their own, Lucas said. I need the flexibility. Can't exactly work 60-hour weeks when you've got a 7-year-old who needs dinner and help with homework and someone to check for monsters under the bed. Monsters under the bed? It's a whole thing. We have a system. Victoria smiled into her coffee. That sounds nice. There was something wistful in her voice, something that made Lucas look at her more carefully. You don't have kids? No, I don't have... She caught herself. My life isn't really set up for that. The business keeps you busy? Something like that. She stood, brushing off her yoga pants. I should let you get back to work. Let me know if you need anything. She disappeared before Lucas could respond, and he went back to pulling nails and stacking wood. But the conversation stayed with him, the things she'd said and the things she hadn't. Over the next week, a pattern emerged. Lucas would arrive in the morning, and Victoria would bring him coffee around 11. Sometimes they'd talk for a few minutes, sometimes longer. She asked about Mia, about the workshop, about how he'd learned carpentry. He asked about her work, something to do with tech companies and venture capital, things he only half understood, and found himself genuinely interested in her answers. She was smart, sharper than anyone he'd ever met, but there was also a loneliness to her that was hard to miss. The way her face would light up when he arrived, like she'd been waiting for someone to talk to. The way the house was always too quiet, too empty. By Friday, he'd finished the demo and started building the new frames. Victoria came up to check on his progress and found him measuring out pieces of maple on the floor. Is that what you're using? She asked, pointing at the wood. Yeah, it's harder than pine, won't warp with humidity changes. Plus, it takes stain really well if you want to change the color later. Can I help? Lucas looked up, surprised. You want to help build your own cabinets? I want to learn. She crouched down beside him. I spend all day looking at spreadsheets and pitch decks. This is different. He couldn't argue with that logic. Okay, can you hold this end while I mark the cut line? They worked together for the next hour, Victoria following his instructions as he showed her how to measure twice and cut once, how to check if something was square, how to feel for imperfections in the wood. She was a quick learner, focused and precise, and Lucas found himself enjoying the teaching as much as the work. You're good at this, he said as she finished sanding a piece smooth. I'm good at following instructions. Victoria set down the sandpaper and brushed dust off her hands. That's different from being good at something. No, you've got an eye for it. The way you check your work, make sure everything lines up. That's not just following instructions. She looked pleased, almost surprised. Thank you. You sound like nobody tells you that very often. People tell me I'm good at making money, that I'm smart, strategic, ruthless when I need to be. Victoria stood and walked to the window, looking out at the backyard. Nobody tells me I'm good at building things. Lucas joined her at the window. Outside, the yard was as pristine as the house. Professional landscaping, not a leaf out of place. Do you actually use that yard? He asked. No, I have a service that maintains it. You ever think about putting in a garden? Something you could work on yourself? I wouldn't know where to start. Same way you start anything. Plant some seeds, see what grows. He shrugged. Might be nice to have something living out there besides grass. Victoria turned to look at him, and there was something intense in her gaze, something that made his pulse quicken. You really think it's that simple? No, Lucas admitted. But sometimes the complicated things start with simple steps. They stood there for a moment, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something clean and floral, and he realized with a jolt that he was attracted to her. Not just physically, though she was beautiful in a way that kind of snuck up on you, but to her. To the woman who made spreadsheets and venture capital decisions but wanted to learn carpentry, who lived in this perfect house but seemed so desperately lonely. I should go pick up Mia, he said, stepping back. I'll be back Monday to keep working on the frames. Lucas, Victoria's voice stopped him at the door. Thank you for letting me help, for not treating me like... She searched for words. Like I might break something. You're tougher than you think, Lucas said. And then, because it felt important to say, and for what it's worth, I think you'd be good at gardening. Her smile followed him all the way home. The second week brought rain, the kind of steady downpour that turned everything gray and made the workshop leak in 3 new places. Lucas spent Monday morning setting out buckets and taping plastic over his woodpile before heading to Victoria's house. She answered the door in sweatpants and an oversized cardigan, her hair in a messy bun, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. I was starting to think you might not come in this weather, she said. Carpenter's code. We work in anything short of a hurricane. He stomped his boots on the mat. Plus, I've got your wood acclimating in the guest room. Can't leave it half finished. I appreciate the dedication. She stepped aside to let him in. Fair warning, I'm working from home today and I have video calls. If you hear me talking to myself, I'm probably not having a breakdown. Noted. Lucas headed upstairs and got to work assembling the frame sections he'd cut last week. The rain drummed against the windows, a steady rhythm that he found strangely peaceful. Around 10:30, he heard Victoria's voice from the guest room down the hall. I understand your concerns, David, but the numbers don't support that conclusion. If you look at the third quarter projections, her tone was completely different, crisp, authoritative, brooking no argument. This was the billionaire businesswoman his mother had mentioned, the one who made deals and ran companies, not the woman who'd sat on the floor learning to sand wood. The call went on for nearly an hour, and Lucas tried not to listen, but the walls were thin and Victoria's voice carried. He heard fragments about market analysis, risk assessment, board approval. Heard her shut down someone's objections with cold efficiency, then turn around and praise someone else's innovative thinking. She was brilliant, he realized. Not just smart, but strategic, able to see 3 moves ahead. When the call finally ended, silence fell over the house except for the rain. Lucas kept working, fitting pieces together with careful precision. He was so focused that he didn't hear Victoria come in until she spoke. I brought lunch. He turned to find her holding 2 paper bags with the logo from some expensive-looking bistro. You didn't have to do that. I was ordering anyway, and I figured you'd forget to eat. She set one bag next to his toolbox. Turkey and Swiss on sourdough. Your mother mentioned it's your favorite. My mother needs to stop giving you information about me, Lucas said, but he was smiling as he washed his hands and opened the bag. The sandwich was perfect, probably cost $15, and came with fancy chips and a chocolate chip cookie the size of his palm. They ate, sitting on the floor of the office, backs against the wall, while rain continued to pour outside. That call sounded intense, Lucas said. Victoria made a face. David's a good CEO, but he gets nervous when we push into new markets. Sometimes he needs to be reminded why we hired him in the first place. Which is? He's smart enough to know what he doesn't know. A lot of executives fake it, pretend they have all the answers. David asks questions. She took a bite of her sandwich. How's the framing coming? Good. Should have it all assembled by end of day, then I can start on the actual cabinet boxes next week. It's remarkable to watch you work, Victoria said. Everything's so precise, so intentional. I spend my days dealing with abstracts, projections, forecasts, possibilities. You're building something real. You build real things too. Companies, jobs, whatever. It's not the same. She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. When you're done here, these shelves will last for decades. They'll hold my books, my files, whatever I need. The companies I fund, half of them will fail. That's just statistics. But the half that succeed change things, Lucas pointed out. Create new technology, solve problems, employ people. That matters. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. You're an optimist. I'm a realist who's had to find the good parts because the alternative is giving up. He finished his sandwich and crumpled the wrapper. After my wife died, I had a choice. I could fall apart, or I could figure out how to keep going for Mia. Being an optimist wasn't optional. I'm sorry, Victoria said quietly, about your wife. It was a long time ago. 3 years isn't that long. Lucas turned to look at her. How do you know that? Your mother mentioned it. Victoria had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I might have asked a few questions about you before you came over. Fair's fair. She told me you're a self-made billionaire who works too hard and needs to take better care of yourself. She's not wrong. Victoria laughed, but it sounded hollow. The working too hard part, anyway. What about the taking care of yourself part? I'm fine. You've got shadows under your eyes that say you haven't slept properly in weeks. You work from home, but I've never seen anyone else here. No friends stopping by, no family visiting. This whole house is beautiful, but it feels empty. Lucas hesitated, then decided to push forward. You ordered lunch for 2 on a rainy Tuesday like it was a special occasion. When was the last time you had a real conversation with someone who wasn't on a video call? Victoria stared at him, and for a second he thought he'd overstepped. Then her eyes got bright and she looked away, blinking fast. I'm sorry, Lucas said immediately. That was out of line. No. Her voice was thick. You're not wrong. Nobody's called me out like that in a very long time. I shouldn't have. I'm glad you did. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. The truth is, I'm good at business. I'm good at making money, at seeing opportunities, at building companies. But I'm terrible at building a life. I work 16-hour days because I don't know what else to do with myself. I live in this perfect house that feels like a hotel. I have acquaintances, not friends. And the only real conversation I've had in months is with my mother's carpenter while he fixes my shelves. Lucas didn't know what to say to that kind of honesty, so instead he reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. For what it's worth, he said, I'm glad I'm here. And not just because you're paying me. Victoria squeezed back, then let go and stood up, brushing off her sweatpants. I should let you get back to work, but thank you, for lunch and for, she gestured vaguely, everything else. Anytime. She left, and Lucas went back to his framing, but something had shifted between them, something that felt important and fragile and a little bit dangerous. By the end of the 3rd week, the cabinet boxes were built and Lucas had moved on to fitting them into place. The work required precision, hours spent checking and rechecking measurements, shimming and adjusting until everything was perfectly level and square. Victoria had taken to working in the office while he built around her. her laptop balanced on a folding table, occasionally asking him questions or simply watching him work. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said one afternoon. Lucas looked up from the drill he was loading with screws. "Sure." "Do you ever get lonely?" The question caught him off guard. "Sometimes. Late at night, after Mia's asleep and the house is quiet, or when I see other couples at her school events, both parents there together." He set down the drill. "But mostly I'm too busy to think about it. That's my strategy too." Victoria closed her laptop. "Stay so busy that you don't notice what's missing." "What do you think is missing?" She was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the backyard where nothing grew except perfect grass. "Connection," she said finally. "I have business partners, board members, people who want things from me, but nobody who just sees me. Not the company, not the money, just me." Lucas thought about the way she'd looked learning to sandwood, the delight on her face when a drawer slid smoothly on its track. The woman who ordered 2 lunches on a rainy day and asked questions about monsters under the bed. "I see you," he said. Victoria turned to look at him, and the expression on her face was so raw, so vulnerable, that it made his chest ache. "I know," she said softly. "That's what scares me." They stared at each other across the half-built shelving, the air between them charged with something electric. Lucas knew he should look away, should make a joke or change the subject, or do anything except stand here wanting to cross the room and kiss her. But he couldn't move. "I should go pick up Mia," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "Right, of course." He gathered his tools with shaking hands, hyper-aware of Victoria watching him. At the office door he paused, turned back. "For what it's worth," Lucas said, "I think you're the bravest person I've ever met. Building a business from nothing, making billion-dollar decisions, putting yourself out there every day. That takes guts." "I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm one mistake away from everything falling apart." "Welcome to being human," he offered a small smile. "We're all just faking it and hoping nobody notices." "Even you?" "Especially me. Every morning I wake up terrified I'm screwing up this whole single dad thing, that Mia's going to grow up and realize I had no idea what I was doing. But you show up anyway." "Yeah, I show up anyway." Victoria crossed the room then, closing the distance between them in 3 steps. She stopped close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could count the freckles across her nose that makeup usually covered. "Thank you," she said, "for showing up here too." She kissed his cheek, feather light, then stepped back before he could respond. Lucas left in a daze, his skin tingling where her lips had touched, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was in trouble. Deep, complicated, definitely going to end badly trouble. But as he drove home through the afternoon traffic, he couldn't stop smiling. The 4th week, everything changed. Lucas arrived Monday morning to find Victoria pacing in her office, phone pressed to her ear, her face tight with stress. "I don't care what the lawyers say. Make it happen." She saw Lucas and held up one finger. "Give me a minute." "No, that's not acceptable. We had a deal, and I expect you to honor it. Figure it out." She hung up and immediately threw her phone onto the desk, where it bounced once and landed face down. "Bad day?" Lucas asked. "Bad month." Victoria pressed her hands to her face. "One of my biggest investments just tried to tank their own stock price to trigger a buyback clause. It's legal, technically, but it's going to cost me millions and screw over everyone else who invested. Is there anything you can do?" "Sue them, probably. Tie it up in court for years while lawyers get rich and nothing actually gets resolved." She dropped her hands, and he could see tears threatening. "I'm so tired, Lucas. Tired of fighting, tired of everyone thinking they can take advantage of me because I'm young, or because I'm a woman, or because they're jealous of what I've built." Lucas set down his toolbox and crossed to her without thinking. "Come here." He pulled her into a hug, and after a second of stiffness, Victoria collapsed against him. She didn't cry, but he could feel the tension in her shoulders, the way she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. "You're allowed to fall apart," he said quietly. "Just for a minute. If I start, I won't stop." "Then I'll help you put the pieces back together." She laughed, a watery sound against his chest. "You barely know me." "I know enough." He stroked her hair, feeling the silk of it under his rough carpenter's hands. I know you're strong and brilliant and so lonely it hurts to watch. I know you care about doing the right thing even when it costs you. I know you make the best coffee I've ever had, and you're terrible at remembering to eat lunch, and you have this little crease between your eyebrows when you're concentrating. Victoria pulled back just enough to look up at him. You notice all that? I notice everything about you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Victoria's eyes searched his face, looking for something. Whatever she found there must have been the right answer, because she rose up on her toes and kissed him. Not on the cheek this time. On the mouth, soft and tentative, and asking a question. Lucas answered by pulling her closer, by kissing her back with all the want he'd been trying to ignore for weeks. She made a small sound and her arms came up around his neck, and suddenly gentle wasn't enough. His hands found her waist, then her back, then her hair, and she was pressed against him, both of them breathing hard, 3 weeks of tension finally breaking. When they finally pulled apart, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. We shouldn't do this, he said. I know. Your friend is my mother. I know. I'm a broke carpenter with a kid, and you're you. I know. Well, Victoria cupped his face in her hands. But I don't care. Do you? Lucas thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. The complications, the differences in their lives, the fact that his mother would have opinions, capital O opinions, about this, the fact that he had Mia to think about and he couldn't bring someone into her life unless he was sure. But he also thought about the way Victoria's face lit up when he arrived in the mornings, the easy conversations over coffee, the feeling that for the first time since Jenna died, he'd found someone who saw him as more than just Mia's dad or Margaret's son or the guy who fixed things. No, he said finally, I don't care either. Victoria smiled, brilliant and real, and kissed him again. They didn't talk about what happened next, what this meant, how they'd navigate the impossible gap between their worlds. For now, in this half-finished office with sawdust on the floor and rain starting to fall outside, it was enough to know they weren't alone anymore. Lucas stayed until he absolutely had to leave for Mia's school pickup. Victoria walked him to the door, both of them a little dazed, a little giddy. Same time tomorrow? She asked. Yeah. He caught her hand, laced their fingers together. Victoria, I know. We'll figure it out. He kissed her knuckles and left. And all the way home, he felt like he was floating. Like gravity had been optional all along, and he was only just now realizing it. Mia looked up from her book when he walked into the house. You're smiling weird. I'm just in a good mood, Bug. Did you finish the cabinets? Almost. 1 more week. But as Lucas started dinner, his phone buzzed with a text from his mother. I'm coming to visit this weekend. Can't wait to catch up. His stomach dropped. His mother, who'd sent him to Victoria's house in the first place. His mother, who'd known Victoria for years, who thought of her as a friend. His mother, who had no idea what he'd just started. Lucas looked at the message for a long time, then typed back. Sounds great, Mom. Looking forward to it. The lie tasted bitter, but he wasn't ready to tell the truth yet, wasn't ready to see the look on his mother's face when she realized what was happening. 1 more week, he told himself. He'd finish the job, figure out what this thing with Victoria actually was, and then he'd deal with his mother. It was a good plan. Too bad plans never survived contact with reality. Lucas spent Tuesday in a fog. Half his attention on the cabinet doors he was hanging, and half on the woman standing across the room pretending to work on her laptop. Every few minutes their eyes would meet and Victoria would smile, this secret thing that made his pulse jump, and he'd have to look away before he did something stupid like cross the room and kiss her again. You're being obvious, she said around noon. You're the one staring. I'm allowed to stare. It's my house. That's not how staring works. Lucas stepped back to check if the door was level. People are going to notice if you keep looking at me like that. What people? There's nobody here but us. Your assistant, your business partners, my mother when she shows up this weekend and realizes something's different. Victoria's smile faltered. Are you worried about telling her? Terrified, actually. Lucas adjusted the hinge and tested the door's swing. She set this up. She sent me here to fix your cabinets, not to... He gestured between them. Whatever this is that all this is to you? Whatever? The hurt in her voice made him turn around. Victoria had closed her laptop and was watching him with an expression that was trying very hard to be neutral and failing completely. No, Lucas said. That came out wrong. I just meant we haven't really talked about what we're doing here. We're two adults who are attracted to each other. You're my mother's friend. I'm also 30 years old and capable of making my own decisions. Victoria stood and crossed to where he was working. Unless you're saying you regret yesterday. I don't regret it. Lucas caught her hand, tangling their fingers together. I'm just trying to figure out how this works. You live in a different world than I do. Your lunch yesterday probably cost more than I spend on groceries in a week. You run companies and make million-dollar decisions, and I build cabinets and pack school lunches. How do we— Money doesn't matter. Easy to say when you have it. Victoria pulled her hand away. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. Lucas set down his drill and rubbed his face. Look, I like you. More than like you, if I'm being honest. But I've got a daughter to think about. I can't just jump into something without knowing where it's going. So what are you saying? We stop before we start? I'm saying we need to be smart about this. Take it slow, figure out if it's real before we tell anyone or make it complicated. It's already complicated, Victoria pointed out. Then let's not make it worse. Lucas reached for her again, relieved when she didn't pull away. Can we just take this one day at a time? Keep it between us for now? Victoria studied him for a long moment, and he could see her working through it, weighing options the way she probably did with business deals. Finally, she nodded. Okay, one day at a time, but Lucas— She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume. I need you to know this isn't casual for me. I don't do casual. Me neither. Good. She kissed him, quick and sweet, then stepped back. Now finish my cabinet so I have an excuse to keep you around. They managed to keep their hands off each other for the rest of the afternoon, though Lucas caught himself watching Victoria work more than he should have. She was on another video call, this one with someone in what sounded like Japan based on the time zone references, and she'd switched into that crisp professional voice again. But every so often she'd glance over at him and her expression would soften, just for a second, before she went back to discussing market penetration and quarterly targets. Around 4, Lucas started packing up his tools. I need to grab Mia, but I should be able to finish the doors tomorrow. Then it's just the drawer fronts and hardware. You're almost done. There was something in her voice, something that sounded like disappointment. Lucas straightened from his toolbox. I can drag it out if you want. Add some decorative details. Maybe a few extra shelves. Don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. I've got time. Victoria crossed her arms, and he recognized the defensive posture now, the way she pulled back when she felt exposed. I don't want you to stay because I'm paying you. I don't want to leave because the job's done. Lucas closed the distance between them. So maybe we figure out a different reason for me to keep coming around. Like what? Like you promised to teach me about venture capital, and I promised to teach you about gardening. I never promised that. Then promise now. Victoria's mouth twitched. You're persistent. One of my better qualities. Lucas kissed her forehead. Think about it. I'll see you tomorrow. He made it halfway to the door before she called after him. Lucas, Friday night, after you finish the cabinets. Have dinner with me. He turned back. Like a date? Exactly like a date. Unless you're too scared. I'm terrified, Lucas admitted. But yeah, dinner sounds good. Victoria's smile followed him all the way to his truck and through the drive to Mia's school and into the evening. He felt like a teenager again, giddy and nervous and completely out of his depth. It was ridiculous. He was 32 years old, a father, a business owner. He should have outgrown this kind of feeling. But when his phone buzzed later that night with a text from Victoria, just a simple thank you for today, his heart did that stupid jump thing again, and he couldn't stop grinning. Mia looked up from her homework. Why are you smiling at your phone? I'm not. You totally are. Is it a girl? Finish your math problems, Bug. It is a girl. Mia's eyes went wide. Dad, do you have a girlfriend? No, maybe. I don't know yet. Lucas set his phone down. It's complicated. Because of Mom? The question landed soft but heavy, the way Mia's mentions of Jenna always did. Lucas pulled out the chair across from her. No, Bug. Your mom would want me to be happy. She told me that before— He caught himself. She made me promise I wouldn't spend the rest of my life alone. So why is it complicated? Because she's very different from us. She has a lot of money and an important job, and I'm worried that Lucas searched for how to explain this to a 7-year-old. I'm worried we're too different. Mia frowned, considering this with the seriousness she brought to everything. At school, Mrs. Patterson says differences are good. They make us interesting. Mrs. Patterson is very smart. So are you going to ask her out? She already asked me out, actually. We're having dinner on Friday. Can I meet her? Not yet. We're taking it slow, making sure it's right before we bring anyone else into it, including grandmas and daughters. Especially grandmas, Mia said wisely. Grandma has opinions about everything. Lucas laughed and ruffled her hair. Yes, she does, which is why we're not telling her yet. I'm good at keeping secrets. I know you are. Lucas tapped her math worksheet. Now finish this so we can watch that baking show you like. Mia bent back over her homework, but she was smiling, and Lucas felt something loosen in his chest, some knot of worry he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. Mia was okay with this. More than okay. She was excited for him. Now he just had to make sure he didn't screw it up. Wednesday and Thursday passed in a blur of work and stolen moments. Lucas finished the cabinet doors and moved on to the drawers, while Victoria worked beside him or brought him coffee, or just sat on the floor asking questions about wood grain and joinery techniques. They didn't kiss again. Both of them seemed to have silently agreed that if they started, they wouldn't stop. But the air between them felt charged, full of potential energy waiting to break loose. Thursday afternoon, Victoria's phone rang and she glanced at the screen, then grimaced. I have to take this. It's my board chair. Go ahead. I'll try to keep the noise down. She answered as she left the room. Robert, hi. Yes, I got your email about the board meeting. Lucas kept working, but he couldn't help overhearing fragments of the conversation from down the hall. I understand your concerns, but the investment is sound. No, I'm not being reckless. The due diligence shows, Robert, I've been doing this for 10 years. I think I know how to evaluate risk. A long pause. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying trust my judgment. Yes, fine. I'll have the reports on your desk by Monday. She came back looking tense, her jaw tight. Everything okay? Lucas asked. My board thinks I'm taking too many risks. They want me to play it safe, stick to proven investments, stop chasing moonshots. Victoria dropped into the desk chair. Which is exactly the opposite of how I built this company in the first place. So what are you going to do? Ignore them, probably. It's my company. I have controlling interest. But she didn't sound confident. They're not wrong, though. The market's volatile right now. One big failure could cost us. But one big success could change everything, right? That's the gamble. Victoria spun the chair to face him. You ever feel like everyone's waiting for you to fail? Like they're keeping score of your mistakes and ignoring everything you've done right? Lucas thought about the whispers at Mia's school when he showed up alone to events, the way some of the other parents looked at him like he couldn't possibly be doing a good job without a wife. The contractors who'd tried to lowball him because they assumed a small operation meant desperate. The condescending questions about when he was going to get a real job with benefits and stability. Yeah, he said, I know that feeling. How do you deal with it? I prove them wrong, and when I can't, I remind myself that their opinions don't pay my bills or raise my daughter or build my cabinets. He set down the drawer he was sanding. You're brilliant, Victoria. You've built something incredible. If your board can't see that, maybe you need a better board. I can't fire my board. Why not? It's your company. Victoria laughed, surprised. It doesn't work that way. They represent the investors, the shareholders. I need them. Do you? Or have you been told you need them for so long that you believe it? She stared at him, and he could see the wheels turning. I'd have to restructure everything. Buy out certain investors, reorganize the voting shares. It would take months. But could you do it? Probably, yes, if I really wanted to. Victoria stood and paced to the window. Nobody's ever suggested I just remove the obstacle before. Most people probably assume you can't. But you don't. I figure if you can build a billion-dollar company from nothing, you can handle a few board members who've forgotten whose vision they're supposed to be supporting. Victoria turned to look at him, and there was something in her expression that made his breath catch. Do you have any idea how rare you are? I'm just a carpenter who's bad at staying in his lane. No. She crossed back to him, close enough to touch but not touching. You're someone who sees me. Not the money, not the company, not the intimidating billionaire everyone else sees. Just me. That's because the rest of them aren't paying attention. Victoria kissed him then, soft and slow, like they had all the time in the world. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Friday night, she said, I'm going to cook for you. You cook? I'm adequate. And I have very expensive ingredients that make up for lack of skill. Lucas grinned. I can't wait. Friday arrived faster than Lucas expected and slower than he wanted. He spent the morning installing the drawer hardware and the afternoon applying the final coat of finish to the cabinet doors. Victoria had disappeared into the guest room for calls, and the house felt too quiet without her presence. Around 4, she emerged looking frazzled. Everything all right? Lucas asked. Just the usual chaos. One of my CEOs is threatening to quit. Another one wants to acquire a competitor and needs approval today. And my lawyer called to say the lawsuit over that stock manipulation is moving forward. She rubbed her temples. I'm starting to think Friday night isn't the best timing. We can reschedule. No. Victoria's voice was firm. I need this. I need one thing in my life that isn't a crisis or a problem to solve. I need... She looked at him. I need you. The honesty of it hit him square in the chest. Okay, what time should I be here? 7? That gives me time to actually attempt cooking something edible. I could bring pizza as backup. That's not confidence-inspiring. I'm a carpenter, not a motivational speaker. Lucas finished wiping down the last cabinet. But for the record, I think anything you make will be great because you made it. Victoria kissed his cheek. Flatterer. Now go. I have groceries to buy and recipes to panic over. Lucas went home and immediately started his own panicking. What did you wear to dinner with a billionaire? His nicest jeans and a button-down felt too casual. The one suit he owned felt too formal. He settled on dark jeans, a sweater, and the boots he saved for occasions that required looking like he gave a damn. Mia watched his preparations with undisguised amusement. You're nervous, she observed. Very. Is she nice? She's wonderful. Then why are you nervous? Lucas sat on the edge of the bed. Because I really like her, Bug, and that's scary. Grandma says you should be brave. Grandma says a lot of things. She also says she's coming tomorrow and she's bringing pie. Lucas's stomach dropped. He'd almost forgotten about his mother's visit in the chaos of the week. Right, tomorrow. Are you going to tell her about your girlfriend? She's not... We haven't... Lucas sighed. I don't know yet. Mia came over and hugged him. It'll be okay, Dad. You're good at hard things. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't notice because I'm short. Lucas laughed and kissed the top of her head. Okay, Bug. Mrs. Chen is going to come stay with you tonight. You be good for her. I'm always good. You're sometimes good, occasionally good. Let's aim for tonight being one of the good times. He dropped Mia with their neighbor and drove to Victoria's house, his heart hammering the whole way. This was insane. He was having dinner with a woman worth billions while he was one bad month away from having to choose between his mortgage and Mia's dental appointment. They had nothing in common except attraction and his mother's friendship and this weird connection that felt deeper than it should after only a few weeks. But when Victoria answered the door in jeans and a simple black top, her hair loose around her shoulders and her feet bare, all of his doubts evaporated. Hi, she said. Hi. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, before Victoria laughed and stepped aside. Come in before the neighbors think I'm weird. The house smelled like garlic and something else Lucas couldn't identify. Victoria led him to the kitchen, where pots bubbled on the stove and vegetables covered the counter in various states of being chopped. I might have been overambitious, she admitted. I'm trying to make coq au vin from a recipe I found online, except I've never cooked with wine before and I'm worried I'm doing it wrong. It smells amazing. You're lying, but I appreciate it. Victoria handed him a glass of red wine. Here, if the food is terrible, at least we can get drunk. Lucas took the glass and watched her work, noting the way she approached cooking like she approached everything else, with intense focus and slight anxiety about whether she was doing it right. He wanted to tell her to relax, that food didn't have to be perfect to be good, but he knew she wouldn't believe him. Can I help? He asked. Can you set the table? Plates are in that cabinet, silverware in the drawer by the sink. They moved around the kitchen together, and Lucas was struck by how domestic it felt. How normal, like they'd done this 100 times before instead of this being their first real date. Dinner was served in the dining room, which Victoria had set with actual candles and cloth napkins. The coq au vin was slightly overcooked but delicious, and she'd made roasted potatoes and green beans that were perfect. "This is really good," Lucas said, and meant it. "You don't have to lie." "I'm not. It's good, Victoria. Really." She relaxed slightly, allowing herself a small smile. "I was terrified I'd poison you. I've eaten Mia's cooking experiments. This is gourmet by comparison." They talked through dinner about everything and nothing. Victoria told him about her first business venture, a website she'd built in college that helped students sell textbooks to each other, which she'd sold for enough money to start investing in other companies. Lucas told her about learning carpentry from his grandfather, how the old man had been demanding and critical, but also the best teacher he'd ever had. "He sounds wonderful," Victoria said. He was. Stubborn as hell, opinionated, completely impossible sometimes. But he taught me that if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right the first time. Lucas paused. "I think you would have liked him, and he would have appreciated your approach to business. The ruthless part. The not settling part. He always said that mediocre work was worse than no work because it meant you didn't respect yourself or your craft." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I wish I'd had someone like that when I was starting out. Someone who believed in excellence instead of just profit." "You had yourself. That counts for something." After dinner, they moved to the living room with the wine bottle and sat on the couch, not quite touching, but close enough that Lucas could feel her warmth. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said. "Sure. When you were married, before your wife died, were you happy?" The question was unexpected, but not unwelcome. "Yeah, we were happy. Not perfect. We fought about money, and I worked too much, and she hated that I left my tools everywhere. But we were good together." Lucas stared at his wine glass. "After she died, I didn't think I'd ever feel that way again. Didn't think I'd want to." "What changed?" "You did." He set down his glass and turned to face her. "I wasn't looking for this, Victoria. I came here to fix your cabinets and somehow ended up—" He gestured helplessly. "Here. Do you regret it?" "No, but I'm scared of it." "Me too." Victoria shifted closer until their knees were touching. "I've never been good at relationships. I get too focused on work. I forget to call people back. I cancel plans at the last minute for board meetings. Every guy I've dated has eventually given up because they couldn't compete with my company. I'm not asking you to choose." "I know. That's what scares me." She reached out and took his hand. "You're not intimidated by my success. You're not trying to manage me or change me or use me for connections. You just see me. It's not hard. You're pretty easy to see." Victoria laughed and leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat like that for a while, quiet and comfortable, until Lucas felt her tension gradually ease. "I should go," he said eventually, though he didn't move. "I told Mrs. Chen I'd be back by 11. Stay a little longer." So he did. They talked about Mia, about Victoria's plans to maybe restructure her board, about the garden they should plant in the spring. Somewhere around 10:30, Victoria fell asleep against his shoulder, and Lucas sat very still, not wanting to wake her. She looked younger when she slept, peaceful in a way she never was awake. Lucas brushed a strand of hair off her face and let himself imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like if this was his life. Coming home to Victoria, cooking dinner together, falling asleep on the couch while talking about nothing important. It felt impossible and terrifying and exactly right. Victoria stirred around 11, blinking awake slowly. "Sorry," she mumbled. "I didn't mean to fall asleep." "It's okay, but I really do need to go." She walked him to the door, both of them moving slowly like they were trying to stretch out the evening. At the threshold, Victoria caught his hand. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight. For everything. Thank you for not poisoning me. I make no promises about next time." "Next time? If you want there to be one." Lucas kissed her, soft and lingering. "Yeah, I want there to be a next time." He drove home feeling lighter than he had in years, like something that had been locked tight in his chest had finally opened. He was in love with Victoria Hale. It was ridiculous and complicated and probably going to end in disaster, but he was in love with her anyway. And tomorrow, his mother was coming to visit. The thought sobered him quickly. His mother, who'd introduced him to Victoria, who thought of her as a friend, who had no idea what had happened in the past month. Lucas pulled into his driveway and sat in the truck for a long moment, staring at his dark house. He had to tell her. It was the right thing to do, the honest thing. But the thought of seeing disappointment on his mother's face, of having to explain and justify and defend something that was still so new and fragile. His phone buzzed. Victoria. I had a wonderful time tonight. Sleep well. Lucas smiled and typed back. Me too. Dream about perfectly level cabinets. Victoria. I'll try, though I might dream about the carpenter instead. He was still smiling when he walked inside, still smiling when he paid Mrs. Chen and checked on Mia, still smiling when he finally climbed into bed. Tomorrow, he'd worry about his mother. Tonight, he'd just be happy. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of bright sunshine that made Lucas's lack of sleep feel even worse. He'd been awake since 5, running through conversations in his head, trying to figure out how to tell his mother about Victoria without it sounding like exactly what it was. A relationship that had started fast and felt serious and completely ignored the fact that she'd been the one to set them up in the first place. Mia was already dressed and bouncing around the kitchen when he stumbled downstairs. Grandma's coming today. I'm aware, Lucas said, reaching for the coffee pot like it was a lifeline. Are you going to tell her about your girlfriend? Probably not. Why not? Because it's complicated, Bug. And sometimes with complicated things, you need to wait for the right moment. When's the right moment? Lucas poured coffee and took a long sip before answering. I'll know when I see it. Now eat your cereal before it gets soggy. His mother arrived at 10 with a pie, apple, his favorite, and enough energy to power a small city. Margaret Bennett was 62, barely 5 feet tall, and had opinions about everything from politics to the proper way to fold towels. She hugged Mia first, then Lucas, and immediately started commenting on the state of his kitchen. You need new dish towels. These are falling apart. They work fine, Mom. Working fine and looking decent are two different things. She set the pie on the counter and turned to survey him with sharp eyes. You look tired. Are you sleeping enough? I'm fine. That's what you always say. Margaret pulled out a chair and sat down. Mia, sweetheart, why don't you show me that book report you told me about on the phone? Mia ran off to grab her backpack, and Margaret fixed Lucas with a look he recognized from childhood. The one that said she knew he was hiding something and she was going to find out what. So, she said, how did the job go? Victoria mentioned you were almost finished. Lucas's coffee suddenly tasted bitter. You talked to Victoria? We had lunch on Thursday. I wanted to check in, make sure everything was working out. And what did she say? That you're an excellent carpenter, and she's very happy with the work. Margaret tilted her head. She seemed different, though, lighter somehow. I asked if something good had happened, and she got this look on her face, almost like she wanted to tell me something but didn't know how. Lucas's heart was hammering. Maybe the cabinets just made her really happy. Lucas. Edward Bennett, I raised you for 32 years. I know when you're being evasive. Mia reappeared with her book report, saving Lucas from having to respond. The next hour passed in a blur of Margaret reading Mia's work, suggesting improvements, and generally being the involved grandmother she'd always been. Lucas tried to participate, but his mind kept drifting to Victoria, to the way she'd looked last night curled up on the couch, to the text she'd sent this morning. Missing you already. Is that too clingy for whatever we're doing? He'd written back, not clingy. I miss you too. Now his phone buzzed in his pocket and he pulled it out to see another message from her. Your mom is with you today, right? How's it going? Lucas typed quickly. She knows something's up. She talked to you Thursday? Victoria. We had lunch. I didn't say anything, but I might have been too happy. Sorry. Lucas. Not your fault. I'll figure it out. Who are you texting? Margaret asked. Nobody. Just a client. On Saturday morning? Some people work weekends, Mom. Margaret hummed skeptically, but let it drop. They spent the afternoon at the park, Mia running around the playground while Margaret and Lucas sat on a bench watching her. "She's getting so big," Margaret said. "I can't believe she starts third grade next year." "I know, it's going too fast." "You're doing a good job with her, Lucas. I know it's not easy being both parents." "We manage." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Have you thought about dating? It's been 3 years. Jenna would want you to be happy." The timing of the question made Lucas's stomach flip. "Why are you asking?" "Because you're my son and I worry about you being lonely." She patted his knee. "You're a good man, Lucas. You deserve someone who sees that." "I'm not lonely, Mom." "Everyone's lonely sometimes. There's no shame in wanting companionship." Lucas thought about Victoria's head on his shoulder last night, the way she'd fallen asleep mid-conversation, like she felt safe enough to let her guard down. He wanted to tell his mother about it, wanted to share this good thing that had happened to him. But the words stuck in his throat. "If I meet someone," he said carefully, "you'll be the first to know. Promise?" "Promise." It was a lie, technically, since he'd already met someone. But it bought him time to figure out how to handle this without everyone getting hurt. They had dinner at Lucas's house. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad and the pie Margaret had brought. Afterward, while Mia was in her room playing, Margaret helped Lucas clean up the kitchen. "I'm worried about Victoria," she said suddenly. Lucas almost dropped the plate he was washing. "Why?" "She works too much, lives in that big house all alone. I've been trying to introduce her to people, get her out more, but she's so focused on business that she doesn't make time for her own life." Margaret dried a glass and set it in the cabinet. "I was hoping maybe the two of you might become friends. You're both around the same age, both know what it's like to feel isolated." "We talk some," Lucas said, "while I was working." "Good. She needs friends who aren't trying to get something from her, people who see her as more than just her bank account." The irony wasn't lost on Lucas. His mother had orchestrated exactly what she'd hoped for, just not in the way she'd intended. He and Victoria had connected, had become more than friends, had found in each other exactly what Margaret had described, people who saw past the surface to the person underneath. But telling her that now, like this, felt wrong. "I should get going," Margaret said, checking her watch. "I've got church in the morning, and I promised to bring breakfast casserole." Lucas walked her to her car, Mia trailing behind for one last hug. "Thank you for coming, Mom." "Of course, sweetheart." Margaret cupped his face in her hands. "You look happier than you have in a long time. I don't know what's changed, but I'm glad for it. Just, life is good right now." "Good." She kissed his cheek and climbed into her car. "Love you both. I'll call next week." Lucas and Mia waved until she disappeared around the corner. Then Mia looked up at him with knowing eyes. "You didn't tell her." "I know." "Are you going to?" "Eventually, when the time is right." "Dad, I'm 7, and even I know that's a bad plan." Lucas sighed and ruffled her hair. "When did you get so smart?" "I told you, I've always been smart." That night, after Mia was asleep, Lucas called Victoria. "Hey," she answered on the first ring. "How was the maternal interrogation?" "She knows something's different. She just doesn't know what yet." Lucas settled onto the couch. "She said you seemed lighter when you had lunch." "I couldn't help it. I kept thinking about you and smiling like an idiot." "She also said she was hoping we'd become friends." Victoria laughed. "Well, she got her wish, just not the PG-rated version." "Victoria, I know. We need to tell her." Her voice got serious. "Lucas, I don't like hiding this. It feels dishonest." "I know, me too. But I need to figure out how to do it without—" He searched for the right words. "Without it seeming like I took advantage of the situation. She set me up to help you as a favor, and instead I fell for me?" The words hung in the air between them. They hadn't said it yet, hadn't put that label on what was happening, but hearing Victoria say it made something settle in Lucas's chest. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I fell for you." "Good, because I fell for you too." Victoria's voice was soft. "And I think your mother will understand that. She might be surprised, maybe even upset at first, but she loves you, Lucas. She wants you to be happy." "What about you? She's your friend." "She's my only real friend," Victoria corrected, "which is why I don't want to lose her over this." But I also don't want to lose you. Lucas closed his eyes, feeling the weight of it all pressing down. What if we can't have both? Then we figure it out together. That's what people do when they care about each other, right? They figure it out. I'm not good at figuring things out. I'm good at building things, fixing things. Relationships they're messy. Everything worth having is messy, Victoria said. My whole business is messy. Investments fail, people quit, markets crash, but the wins make up for the losses. I'm not an investment. No, you're something better. You're real. They talked for another hour about nothing important, and when Lucas finally hung up and went to bed, he felt lighter. Victoria was right. They'd figure it out. They had to. The next week fell into a new rhythm. Lucas finished the last of the cabinet work on Tuesday, installing the final drawer pulls and stepping back to admire the completed project. The built-ins looked perfect. Clean lines, smooth drawers, wood that would last for decades. Victoria stood beside him, surveying the shelves with a smile. It's beautiful. It's functional, Lucas corrected. Beautiful is a bonus. I'm going to miss having an excuse to see you every day. Who says you need an excuse? Lucas started packing up his tools. I could come by, bring dinner, check on those shelves, make sure they're settling properly. How long do shelves need to settle? Could take months, years even. You never know. Victoria laughed and kissed him. They'd gotten comfortable with casual affection over the past week, stolen kisses when Lucas arrived in the morning or left in the afternoon, moments of contact that felt natural and necessary. Stay for lunch, she said. I promise not to cook. They ordered Thai food and ate it sitting on the floor of her office, surrounded by the boxes of files and books Victoria was starting to move back in. I'm going to actually use this space now, she said, gesturing around. Before, it always felt temporary, like it might fall apart at any moment, but now it feels solid. That's good joinery for you. It's not just the cabinets. Victoria set down her pad thai and turned to face him. It's everything. You've made me feel like I can build something permanent, not just in business, but in life. Lucas knew what she was asking without her having to say it. I want that too, something permanent. Even though it's scary? Especially because it's scary. The things worth building are always the hardest. Victoria kissed him then, deep and serious, and Lucas forgot about the lunch getting cold and the tools he needed to pack and everything except the feeling of her in his arms. When they finally broke apart, Victoria rested her forehead against his. We need to tell your mother, she said. I know. When? Lucas thought about it. There's a family dinner next Saturday. My mom's been planning it for weeks. Some kind of early birthday thing for Mia. You could come. To a family dinner where your mother will see us together and figure it out. Or we tell her before. Together. This week. Lucas pulled back to look at her. We could go to her house, sit her down, explain everything. She's going to be upset. Probably. But she'll get over it. My mom's a lot of things, but she's not unreasonable. Victoria didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Okay, this week. We'll tell her together. They spent the afternoon moving Victoria's books onto the new shelves, organizing her files, making the office look lived in and real. Lucas caught himself imagining doing this in other rooms, helping her pick out furniture, painting walls, slowly making the house feel less like a museum and more like a home. What are you thinking about? Victoria asked, catching him staring. Nothing, just, this feels good. Being here with you. It does, doesn't it? She shelved another book and turned to look at him. Lucas, after we tell your mother, assuming she doesn't kill both of us, what happens next? What do you mean? I mean with us. Where does this go? Victoria crossed her arms, not defensive but uncertain. I've never done this before. The serious relationship thing. I don't know what the steps are. I don't think there are steps. I think you just keep showing up, keep choosing each other. What about Mia? The question made Lucas pause. What about her? When do I meet her? How does that work? Victoria bit her lip. I don't want to screw this up. She's been through so much already, losing her mother. What if she hates me? She won't hate you. You don't know that. Lucas set down the book he was holding and crossed to where Victoria stood. Mia wants me to be happy. She's been asking about you since the first week I started working here, And yeah, it'll be weird at first, and she'll probably test you to see if you're going to stick around. But she's a good kid with a big heart, and if I love you, she'll figure out how to love you too." Victoria's eyes went wide. "You love me?" Lucas realized what he'd said and felt his heart jump. "Yeah, I do. I know it's fast and maybe too soon to say it, but I love you, Victoria." She launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck and kissing him hard. When she pulled back, she was crying and smiling at the same time. "I love you too," she said. "I've been terrified to say it, because what if you didn't feel the same way, and I ruined everything? But I love you, Lucas Bennett. I love your calloused hands and your terrible jokes, and the way you see the good in people. I love that you're a great father and a talented carpenter, and you treat me like I'm normal, instead of some untouchable billionaire. I love—" He kissed her again, stopping the flow of words. They stood there in her office, surrounded by books and the smell of wood finish, and Lucas felt like every broken piece of his life had suddenly clicked into place. "We're really doing this," he said against her mouth. "We're really doing this. My mom is going to have opinions. Lots of them, probably. And the press might find out eventually. People will talk. Let them talk." Victoria pulled back and cupped his face in her hands. "I spent my whole life trying to control what people thought of me. I'm done with that. If they want to gossip about the billionaire dating a carpenter, fine. I don't care anymore." "I care a little," Lucas admitted. "I don't want Mia dealing with photographers or reporters or whatever comes with your world." "Then we'll protect her, set boundaries. I know lawyers who specialize in privacy, publicists who can manage narratives. We'll figure it out." Lucas kissed her forehead. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's worth it." They spent the rest of the afternoon together, and when Lucas finally had to leave to pick up Mia, he felt like he was walking on air. He loved Victoria Hale. She loved him back. Everything else was just details. But the details started to matter when he got home and found a message from his mother on the answering machine. "Lucas, it's Mom. Call me when you get this. It's important." His good mood evaporated. Lucas called her back immediately. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I ran into Janet Morrison at the grocery store." Lucas's stomach dropped. Janet Morrison was the neighborhood gossip, a woman who made it her personal mission to know everyone's business. "Okay?" "She said she saw your truck parked at Victoria Hale's house. Multiple times over the past month. Always there for hours." Margaret's voice was careful, controlled. "She made some comment about you working late, and I said yes, you were doing a big job for her. But Lucas, the job's done now, isn't it?" "Yeah, I finished on Tuesday." "So why was your truck there again today?" Lucas closed his eyes. "Mom, are you seeing her?" The question landed like a physical blow. Lucas thought about lying, about making up some excuse about follow-up work or checking on the cabinets. But he was tired of hiding, tired of feeling like he was doing something wrong when all he'd done was fall in love. "Yes," he said, "I'm seeing her." Silence on the other end of the line, long enough that Lucas started to worry she'd hung up. "Mom, I need to think about this." Margaret's voice was tight. "I'll call you later." She hung up before Lucas could respond. He stood there holding the phone, feeling like the floor had just dropped out from under him. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. He and Victoria were supposed to tell her together, supposed to explain and make her understand. Not like this, ambushed by gossip in a grocery store. Lucas called Victoria immediately. "Hey, she knows." "What?" "My mom knows. Someone saw my truck at your house and told her, and she just called me and—" Lucas ran his hand through his hair. "She knows." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "What did she say?" "That she needs to think about it." Then she hung up. Okay, we can fix this. We'll go see her. We'll explain." She sounded so disappointed, Victoria, like I'd betrayed her. "You didn't betray anyone. We fell in love. That's not a crime. She set me up to help you as a favor, and instead I became exactly the kind of person I needed in my life." Victoria's voice was firm. "Lucas, we didn't plan this. Neither of us went into it looking for a relationship. It just happened. Your mother will understand that." "What if she doesn't?" "Then we give her time, and we keep being honest with her, even when it's hard." Lucas wanted to believe her, wanted to think this would all work out, but he kept hearing the tone in his mother's voice, the careful distance that had never been there before. "I should go," he said. "Mia just got home and I need to think. Call me later?" "Yeah, I will." Lucas hung up and found Mia watching him from the doorway. "Was that Grandma?" "Yeah, Bug." "Is she mad about your girlfriend?" "She's processing." Mia came over and hugged him. "It'll be okay, Dad. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Grandma loves you. She'll come around." Lucas held his daughter close and hoped she was right, because the alternative, choosing between his mother and Victoria, wasn't something he wanted to think about. That night, Margaret didn't call back. Lucas tried her twice, and both times it went to voicemail. He left messages asking her to please call him, to let him explain, but got nothing in response. By Wednesday morning, he was going crazy. He dropped Mia at school and drove straight to his mother's house, a small ranch-style place she'd lived in for 30 years. Her car was in the driveway, so he knew she was home. She answered the door in her bathrobe, her face tired. "Lucas, can we talk? Please?" Margaret hesitated, then stepped aside. Lucas followed her into the kitchen, where she'd clearly been having coffee and reading the newspaper. The crossword was half finished, her reading glasses sitting beside the folded pages. "I'm sorry," Lucas said before she could speak. "I should have told you sooner. I should have been honest from the beginning." "Yes, you should have." Margaret poured herself more coffee but didn't offer him any. "How long has this been going on?" "We kissed for the first time about 2 weeks ago. But we'd been connecting before that. Talking. Getting to know each other. While you were supposed to be working." "I was working. I did the job you asked me to do, Mom. I fixed her cabinets, but in the process Lucas struggled for words. "We fell for each other." "She's my friend, Lucas." "I know. I introduced you because I thought you could help her. I thought maybe you'd become friends, people who understood what it was like to be isolated and working too hard. I didn't send you there to seduce her." "I didn't seduce anyone." Lucas felt his temper rising. "We're both adults. We chose this. Neither of us planned it. Neither of us went looking for it. It just happened." Margaret set down her coffee cup. "She's a billionaire. You're a carpenter with a daughter and a mortgage. What kind of future do you think you have?" "The same kind of future any couple has. We'll figure it out." "And when the novelty wears off, when she gets tired of slumming it with the working class, what then? That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Margaret's voice rose. "You think I haven't seen this before? Rich people who think they want something real, something authentic, until they remember how much easier their life is without complications? Victoria's not like that." "You barely know her." "I know her well enough to love her," Lucas's voice echoed in the small kitchen. "I know she works too hard because she's afraid of failing. I know she lives in that huge house alone because she doesn't know how to let people in. I know she cries when she thinks nobody's watching, and she laughs at my terrible jokes, and she's teaching herself to cook because she wants to do something normal for once. I know she sees me, not my bank account, not my dead wife, not the struggling single dad, just me. And she loves me anyway." Margaret stared at him, and for the first time since he'd arrived, her expression softened slightly. "You really love her?" "Yeah, Mom, I really do." She was quiet for a long moment, then sank into a chair. "I'm scared for you." "Why?" "Because you've been through so much already. Losing Jenna, raising Mia alone, barely keeping the business afloat. And now you're diving into something that could blow up in your face and hurt you even worse." Margaret looked up at him with wet eyes. "I'm your mother. I'm supposed to protect you." Lucas pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. "You can't protect me from everything, and I don't want you to. Yeah, this is scary. Yeah, it might not work out, but it also might be the best thing that's ever happened to me." "What about Mia?" "What about her? Have you thought about how this affects her? How she'll feel about you dating her grandmother's friend?" "Mia's excited for me. She's been asking about Victoria since the beginning. She wants to meet her." Margaret's eyebrows rose. "Mia knows?" "Of course she knows. I'm not going to lie to my daughter." "But you lied to me." The accusation stung because it was true. Lucas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you yet. And I know that's basically the same thing, but Mom, I was scared of this exact reaction, scared you'd tell me all the reasons it wouldn't work, and I'd start believing you. He met her eyes. I needed time to figure out if this was real before I let anyone else's doubts get in the way. And is it real? Yeah, it's real. Margaret reached across the table and took his hand. Then I suppose I need to accept it. You don't sound happy about it. I'm not. Not yet. She squeezed his fingers. But I'm trying. Give me some time to adjust, okay? This isn't what I expected when I sent you to fix her cabinets. Me neither, Lucas admitted. But I'm glad it happened. They sat there for a while, not talking, just holding hands across the kitchen table like they had when he was a kid and needed comfort after a bad day. Finally, Margaret let go and stood up. I need to talk to Victoria, separately from you. Lucas's stomach tightened. Mom, just talk, Lucas. I'm not going to yell at her or forbid anything, but she's my friend, and if this is really happening, we need to clear the air. Okay, I'll let her know. And Lucas? Margaret waited until he looked at her. Be careful. Not because I think she'll hurt you on purpose, but because the world she lives in, it's different from ours. Money changes things, whether we want it to or not. I know. Lucas left feeling marginally better, but still uneasy. His mother hadn't given her blessing exactly, but she hadn't disowned him either. It was progress, however small. He called Victoria from the truck. How did it go? She asked immediately. Better than I expected, worse than I hoped. Lucas pulled out of the driveway. She wants to talk to you. Alone. Victoria was quiet. When? Whenever you're ready, but soon, I think. Okay, I'll call her today. Victoria, It'll be fine, Lucas. Your mother has every right to be upset. I'd want to talk too if I were her. Just be yourself. That's all you need to be. I'll try. Victoria paused. I love you. I love you too. They hung up, and Lucas drove toward the workshop, trying not to imagine all the ways the conversation between his mother and Victoria could go wrong. Victoria sat in her car outside Margaret's house for 10 minutes before she finally worked up the nerve to get out. She'd faced boardrooms full of skeptical investors, negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions, fired CEOs who'd tried to undermine her. But the thought of sitting down with Lucas's mother, her friend, and explaining how she'd fallen in love with Margaret's son made her hands shake. She'd texted Lucas before leaving, on my way, wish me luck. His response had been immediate. You don't need luck. Just be honest. She'll see what I see. Victoria hoped he was right. She walked up the path to the front door and knocked before she could change her mind. Margaret answered quickly, like she'd been waiting. Victoria, come in? The house was warm, lived in, the kind of place that felt like a home instead of just a structure. Family photos covered the walls. Lucas as a child with gap-toothed grin, a wedding photo of him and a woman who must have been Jenna, Mia, at various ages, growing from baby to the 7-year-old she was now. Coffee? Margaret asked. Please. They sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where Lucas had sat just hours ago, though Victoria didn't know that. Margaret poured 2 cups and added cream to hers, her movements precise and controlled. I suppose you know why I wanted to talk, Margaret said. I can guess. Victoria wrapped her hands around the mug. You're upset that Lucas and I are together. Upset isn't quite the right word. Concerned, maybe. Confused, definitely. Margaret met her eyes. I've known you for 5 years, Victoria. I thought I understood who you are, but I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong. What do you mean? I mean that the Victoria I know is careful, strategic, always thinking 3 moves ahead. She doesn't make impulsive decisions. She doesn't jump into relationships with men she barely knows, especially not men who happen to be her friend's sons. Margaret set down her cup. So, either you're not who I thought you were, or something else is going on here. Victoria felt defensive anger rise, but pushed it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. You're right that I'm usually careful, but this wasn't a calculation, Margaret. I didn't plan to fall for Lucas. It just happened. Things don't just happen. People make choices. Okay, fine, we made choices. We chose to spend time together. We chose to be honest about what we were feeling. We chose each other. Victoria leaned forward. But the falling part? That wasn't a choice. That just was. Margaret studied her for a long moment. Tell me how it started. So Victoria did. She explained about the first day Lucas came over, how he'd seen immediately what was wrong with the cabinets and hadn't judged her for being taken advantage of. She talked about their coffee conversations, the way he'd taught her to sand wood, how he'd called her out for working too hard and not taking care of herself. "He saw me," Victoria said quietly. "Not the company, not the money, not the image I project to the world, just me. And he didn't run away scared or try to fix me or use me for connections. He just saw me." "Lucas is good at that," Margaret said. "Seeing people. It's why he's such a good father." "He talks about Mia all the time, the way his face lights up." Victoria smiled. "I've never seen someone so completely devoted to another person. He learned that from watching his father with him, and then he had to become both parents when Jenna died." Margaret's expression softened. "It nearly broke him those first few months, trying to run the business and take care of a 4-year-old and deal with his own grief. I wanted him to move in with me, let me help more. But he was stubborn, said Mia needed her own home, her own space." "That sounds like him." "Does it?" Margaret tilted her head. "You say you know my son, but it's been what? A month? 6 weeks? 5 weeks since we met. 2 weeks since we admitted how we felt." Victoria met Margaret's challenging gaze. "I know that's not a long time. I know there's a lot I don't know yet. But Margaret, I know the important things. I know he's kind and honest, and he works harder than anyone I've ever met. I know he puts Mia first, always. I know he's scared of screwing up as a parent, but he's doing an amazing job. I know he makes terrible jokes, and he's terrible at accepting compliments, and he sees the good in people even when they don't deserve it. He sees the good in you." "Yes, even though half the time I don't see it in myself." Margaret was quiet, turning her coffee mug in slow circles. "I introduced you because I thought you needed a friend. Someone who understood what it was like to work too hard and feel isolated. And you were right. I did need that. I do need that." Victoria paused. "But I also needed someone to love and someone to love me back. I didn't know that until I met Lucas." "What about the practical concerns, the differences in your lives? You mean the money?" "Among other things." Margaret gestured around her modest kitchen. "You live in a mansion in Belmont Heights. Lucas lives in a 2-bedroom house that needs a new roof. You fly first class to business meetings in Tokyo. He drives a 15-year-old truck that breaks down twice a year. How do you reconcile that?" "The same way any couple reconciles their differences. We talk about it. We compromise. We figure out what works for both of us." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "Margaret, I know you think the money is going to be a problem, and maybe it will be sometimes. But I'd rather have Lucas and deal with complicated logistics than go back to my perfect, empty life without him." "What about Mia? What about her? Have you met her yet?" "No. Lucas wants to wait until we're sure this is serious." "And is it?" "Serious." Victoria didn't hesitate. "Yes, I love him, Margaret. I know that probably sounds crazy after such a short time, but I do. I love your son." Margaret's eyes got bright and she looked away, blinking fast. When she looked back, her expression had shifted, still wary, but less defensive. "He came here this morning and said the same thing, that he loves you." She took a shaky breath. "I wanted him to find someone. I've been worried about him being alone, raising Mia without a partner. But I never imagined, you didn't think he'd fall for your friend? I didn't think my friend would be right for him." Margaret wiped her eyes. "You live in such different worlds. I was worried you'd hurt him without meaning to, that the differences would be too much." "They might be," Victoria admitted, "but we're going to try anyway. Because the alternative, walking away from something real because it's difficult, that seems worse than any logistical problem we might face." Margaret laughed, a watery sound. "You sound like him. Lucas always says the hard things are worth doing because they matter more." "He's right." They sat in silence for a moment, the tension slowly easing. Finally, Margaret reached across the table and took Victoria's hand. "I'm not going to say I'm thrilled about this. I'm not going to pretend I don't have concerns, but—" She squeezed Victoria's fingers. "If you make him happy, if you're good to him and to Mia, then I'll try to accept it. That's all I'm asking. Just promise me something." "What?" "If it doesn't work out, if the differences become too much or the relationship falls apart, Promise me you won't disappear from my life too. I need my friend Victoria. I can't lose both of you. Victoria felt tears sting her eyes. I promise. No matter what happens with Lucas, you and I, we're still friends. Margaret nodded and let go of her hand. Okay, good. Now tell me honestly, is he a good kisser? Because he was terrible at it in high school. Victoria laughed, surprised. He's improved significantly. Thank goodness, I was worried he'd never figure it out. They talked for another hour, the conversation gradually shifting from the relationship to other things, Victoria's work, Margaret's volunteer projects, Mia's upcoming birthday party. By the time Victoria left, she felt like some fundamental barrier had been crossed. Margaret wasn't completely on board yet, but she was trying. That was enough. Victoria called Lucas from her car. How did it go? He asked immediately. Better than I expected. She's still worried, but she's willing to give us a chance. Really? Really? Though she did ask if you're a good kisser. Lucas laughed. What did you tell her? That you've improved since high school. I was terrible in high school. Julie Hernandez told me I kissed like a fish. Well, you've definitely figured it out since then. Victoria pulled out of the driveway. Can I come over? I know you're working, but I want to see you. Workshop or house? Whichever is closer. Workshop. I'm finishing up a cabinet for a client. Victoria drove across town feeling lighter than she had in days. The confrontation with Margaret had been scary, but they'd gotten through it. Things weren't perfect, but they were moving forward. That counted for something. She found Lucas in the workshop, covered in sawdust, running a piece of cherry wood through the table saw. He looked up when she walked in, and his whole face changed, breaking into a smile that made her heart flip. Hey, he said, killing the saw. Hey, yourself. He crossed to her and kissed her, not caring about the sawdust or the fact that they were standing in the middle of his workspace, where anyone could see. When he pulled back, Victoria rested her forehead against his chest. Your mom is a tough negotiator. She's had practice. I was a difficult teenager. I can imagine. Victoria looked up at him. She's scared I'm going to hurt you. Are you? Not on purpose. But Lucas, relationships are messy. People hurt each other even when they're trying not to. I know. But I trust you to try not to. That's all anyone can do, right? Try. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. What else did she say? That I need to meet Mia. That we need to figure out the practical stuff. That if we're really doing this, we should do it right. Lucas pulled back slightly. Do you want to meet Mia? I'm terrified, but yes. She's going to love you. You can't know that. I know my daughter. She's been asking about you for weeks. She's excited. Victoria took a breath. Okay. When? Saturday. We're having dinner at my mom's for Mia's birthday. Come with us. Meet her before all of the birthday chaos. Spend some time with her. Let her get to know you. That's a lot. Meeting her and your whole family on the same day? It's not my whole family, just my mom and my Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim. Maybe a few of Mia's friends. Lucas grinned. Okay, it's a lot, but rip the Band-Aid off, right? Get it all done at once? Victoria thought about it. The idea was terrifying, but also kind of perfect. No time to overthink, no prolonged anxiety. Just jump in and see what happened. Okay, she said. Saturday. I'll be there. Yeah? Yeah, but Lucas, what if she doesn't like me? What if I say the wrong thing, or I'm too formal, or... He kissed her, stopping the spiral of worry. Just be yourself. That's who I fell in love with. That's who Mia will love too. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, Victoria sitting on a stool watching Lucas work while they talked about nothing important. It felt normal, comfortable, like this was already their routine instead of something new and fragile. Around 5, Lucas's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and smiled. It's Mia, probably calling to remind me about soccer practice. He answered with, Hey Bug, what's up? Victoria watched his expression change from relaxed to confused to something else she couldn't quite read. Slow down, I can't understand you. What happened? A pause. Okay, I'm coming right now. Stay with Mrs. Chen. He hung up and was already moving toward his truck. I have to go. Mia fell at recess and hit her head. The school sent her home early, and now she's got a headache and she's scared. Is she okay? I don't know. Mrs. Chen says she seems fine, but Mia's crying and asking for me. Lucas grabbed his keys. I'm sorry, I have to go. Of course, text me and let me know she's all right. Yeah, I will. He kissed her quickly and was gone, leaving Victoria standing in the workshop surrounded by sawdust and half-finished projects. She cleaned up his tools without thinking about it, putting things away where she thought they belonged, giving him one less thing to worry about when he got back. Her phone buzzed an hour later. She's fine. Small bump on her head, but no concussion. Just scared. Going to keep her home from school tomorrow to be safe. Victoria, I'm glad she's okay. Give her a hug from me. Lucas. She says thank you and wants to know if you're really coming to her party. Victoria smiled. Tell her yes. I wouldn't miss it. The next few days passed in a blur of work and preparation. Victoria had her assistant track down the perfect birthday present for a 7-year-old girl she'd never met, a challenging task that resulted in 3 different options being delivered to her house. A craft kit with enough supplies to make jewelry for a year, a telescope with a beginner's guide to astronomy, a beautiful leather journal with Mia's name embossed on the cover. Victoria stared at the options spread across her dining room table and felt completely out of her depth. She called Lucas Friday night. I don't know what to get her. I've never shopped for a kid before. What are the options? Victoria described each gift, and Lucas was quiet for a moment. She'd love all of them, he said finally. But the telescope, she's been talking about space lately, asking questions about the moon and stars. That would be perfect. Are you sure? It's not too much? Victoria, she's about to find out her dad is dating a billionaire. Everything is going to feel like too much for a while. Might as well start with something she'll actually use. Okay, telescope it is, Victoria paused. Lucas, I'm nervous. About tomorrow? About all of it. Meeting Mia, being around your family, navigating this whole situation. What if I'm terrible with kids? What if I say something wrong? Then you'll apologize and learn from it. That's what parenting is, screwing up and trying to do better next time. His voice softened. You're going to be great. Just be yourself. Everyone keeps saying that like it's simple. It is simple. You're just overthinking it. Victoria laughed despite her nerves. That's kind of my specialty. I know. It's one of the things I love about you. They talked until Victoria's anxiety had settled into something manageable, and when she hung up, she felt almost ready for tomorrow. Almost. Saturday morning arrived bright and cold, the kind of November day that demanded sweaters and promised rain. Victoria changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans, a soft blue sweater, and boots. Professional enough to show she cared, casual enough not to seem like she was trying too hard. She drove to Lucas's house at noon, the telescope wrapped in bright paper on the passenger seat. Her hands were shaking when she knocked on the door. Lucas answered with Mia right behind him. Victoria's first thought was that she looked exactly like the photos in Margaret's house. Dark hair, bright eyes, the same smile as her father. Her second thought was that the girl was staring at her with intense curiosity. Hi, Victoria said, suddenly forgetting every conversational skill she'd ever learned. You must be Mia. Your dad's girlfriend. Yes, I am. Mia looked her up and down, assessing. You're prettier than I thought you'd be. Mia, Lucas said warningly. What? I'm giving her a compliment. Mia turned back to Victoria. Dad said you're rich. Mia, he did. He said you run companies and live in a big house, and you're really smart. Mia tilted her head. Are you smart? Victoria laughed, her nervousness breaking. I'd like to think so, but your dad might be biased. He says you make good coffee. I do make good coffee. Better than his? Much better. Mia grinned. I like her, Dad. She can stay. Lucas looked relieved and amused. Thanks for the approval, Bug. Now, go get your jacket. We're leaving in 10 minutes. Mia ran off and Lucas pulled Victoria inside, kissing her forehead. That went well, he said. She's direct. That's one word for it. I prefer brutally honest. Lucas helped Victoria out of her coat. She's excited to meet you. She's been planning questions all week. Questions? Nothing too intense, just things like, where do you live? What do you do for fun? Do you like pizza? Have you ever met a famous person? That kind of thing. I can handle that. Mia reappeared with her jacket and stopped short when she saw the wrapped telescope. Is that for me? It is. Victoria said. "Happy early birthday. Can I open it now?" Lucas looked at Victoria, who nodded. Mia tore into the paper with the enthusiasm of a kid who still believed in the magic of presents. When she pulled out the telescope, her eyes went wide. "This is so cool! Dad, look! It's a real telescope!" "I see that, Bug. What do you say?" "Thank you." Mia hugged the box, then seemed to realize she should probably hug Victoria too. She did, quick and fierce, before running to show Lucas all the features listed on the box. Victoria felt something loosen in her chest. Okay. This was okay. Mia didn't hate her. That was a good start. They drove to Margaret's house in Lucas's truck, Mia chattering the whole way about constellations she wanted to see and asking Victoria if she knew anything about astronomy. "A little," Victoria admitted. "I took a class in college." "What was your favorite planet?" "Saturn. I like the rings. Mine's Jupiter because it's the biggest, but Saturn is cool too." Mia bounced in her seat. "Are you going to live with us?" The question came out of nowhere, and Victoria saw Lucas's hands tighten on the wheel. "We haven't talked about that yet," Victoria said carefully. "Your dad and I are still figuring things out. But you love each other, right?" "Yes. And people who love each other usually live together eventually." "Sometimes, but there's no rush. These things take time." Mia considered this. "Okay, but when you do move in, can you bring your big TV? Dad's TV is really small." Lucas laughed. "That's enough interrogation for now, Bug. Give Victoria a break." They pulled up to Margaret's house to find cars already lining the street. Lucas had undersold the party size. Through the windows, Victoria could see at least 20 people. "You said a few friends," Victoria said. "I might have miscalculated." Lucas parked and turned to her. "You okay? Ask me in 3 hours." They walked in together, Lucas carrying the telescope and Victoria suddenly very aware that she was about to be on display for Lucas's entire family. Margaret spotted them immediately and came over. "Victoria, I'm glad you came." The greeting was warm but careful, and Victoria understood they were both trying to find their footing in this new dynamic. "Thank you for having me." "Of course. Mia's been talking about you all week." Margaret smiled at her granddaughter. "Come on, birthday girl, your friends are asking about cake." Mia ran off and Margaret looked at Victoria. "There's wine in the kitchen if you need it." "I might take you up on that." The next hour was a blur of introductions. Lucas's Aunt Carol, a warm woman who immediately pulled Victoria into a hug and declared her too skinny and in need of feeding. Uncle Jim, quieter, but with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Various neighbors and family friends who all seemed very interested in the billionaire dating Margaret's son. Victoria fielded questions with as much grace as she could manage, trying not to feel like a specimen under examination. Yes, she ran several companies. No, she didn't usually date carpenters, but Lucas was special. Yes, the age difference bothered some people, but not them. No, she hadn't met Mia before today, but they seemed to be getting along well. She was refilling her wine when a woman about her age approached, blonde, perfectly styled, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're Victoria Hale." "I am." "I'm Rachel. I live 2 houses down from Lucas." The woman looked her up and down. "I have to say, I'm surprised. When we heard Lucas was seeing someone, I expected, well, someone more like us." Victoria felt her defenses rise. "Like you?" "You know, normal. Someone who understands what it's like to work for a living, to struggle with bills, to live in the real world." Rachel took a sip of her wine. "No offense, but what does a billionaire know about that?" "More than you might think." Victoria kept her voice level. "I started my first company with $500 and a laptop. I worked 3 jobs while building it. I understand struggling. That was years ago, though. You've been rich for what, a decade? You've forgotten what it's like." "Have I?" Victoria met Rachel's challenging gaze. "I still remember eating ramen for every meal because I couldn't afford anything else. I remember choosing between paying rent and buying new shoes. I remember what it felt like to have $12 in my bank account and 3 days until payday. Just because I'm successful now doesn't mean I've forgotten where I came from." Rachel's smile faltered. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant that I don't belong here, that I'm too different, too rich, too other to fit into Lucas's life." Victoria set down her wine glass. And maybe you're right. Maybe there are complications we'll have to work through. But I love him, and he loves me, and we're going to figure it out. Not because it's easy, but because it matters. She walked away before Rachel could respond, her heart pounding. Lucas found her a few minutes later on the back porch, getting some air. You okay? Just needed a minute. Some woman named Rachel decided to share her opinions about our relationship. Lucas grimaced. Rachel Morris, she's had a thing for me since Jenna died. Keeps bringing over casseroles and offering to babysit Mia. She thinks I don't belong here. She's wrong. Lucas pulled Victoria into his arms. You belong wherever you want to be. And if you want to be here, with me and Mia and my chaotic family, then you belong. Victoria rested her head on his chest. This is hard. I know. People are going to judge us. They're going to have opinions and make comments and assume they know our relationship better than we do. Probably, but we don't have to listen to them. Lucas tilted her face up. We just have to listen to each other. They stood there for a moment, and then the back door opened and Mia stuck her head out. Dad, Grandma says it's time for cake. The party shifted into full birthday mode. Mia blew out her candles while everyone sang, opened presents with gleeful enthusiasm, and charmed all her guests with 7-year-old confidence. Victoria watched from the edge of the room, marveling at how easily Mia navigated social situations that Victoria still found awkward at 30. After cake, Mia found Victoria again. Do you want to see my room? I'd love to. Mia led her upstairs to Margaret's guest room, which had clearly been decorated specifically for a granddaughter's visits. The walls were painted pale purple, with glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. Stuffed animals covered the bed, and drawings hung on every available surface. I made that one, Mia said, pointing to a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures. That's me and Dad and Mom. I drew it before she died. Victoria's heart clenched. It's beautiful. Dad says it's okay to remember her, that she'd want us to be happy. Mia climbed onto the bed, patting the spot beside her. Do you make him happy? Victoria sat down carefully. I try to. He smiles more now, since he met you. Mia picked up a stuffed bear and hugged it. I like when he smiles. Me too. Are you going to marry him? The question was so direct, so innocent, that Victoria didn't know how to answer. I don't know, Mia. We're still figuring things out. But you love him. Very much. And he loves you. Yes. Mia nodded, satisfied. Then you probably will. That's how it works in movies. Real life is more complicated than movies. I know, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Mia set down the bear. I just want Dad to be happy, and I want you to be happy too. Is that okay? Victoria felt tears sting her eyes. That's more than okay. That's really sweet. Good, because if you marry him, that means you'd kind of be my mom. Not my real mom, because she died. But like, a new mom. Mia looked up at her with those serious dark eyes. Would that be okay with you? Victoria couldn't speak for a moment. The weight of what Mia was offering, her trust, her hope, her heart, felt enormous. That would be more than okay, Victoria managed finally. That would be an honor. Mia hugged her then, and Victoria held this little girl who'd already lost so much and was still brave enough to hope for more. When they finally went back downstairs, Lucas took one look at Victoria's face and pulled her aside. What happened? Your daughter is remarkable. What did she say? That if we get married, I'd kind of be her new mom. Victoria wiped her eyes. Lucas, I'm not ready for that. I don't know how to be anyone's mother. Neither did I when Mia was born. Neither did Jenna. We figured it out as we went. He took her hands. Nobody's asking you to be her mother right now. We're still dating. We're still figuring us out. But Mia likes you, Victoria. That's huge. What if I screw it up? What if I say the wrong thing or make the wrong choice, or then you'll apologize and do better next time? That's all any parent can do. Lucas pulled her closer. Stop looking for reasons this won't work and trust that it will. Victoria wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love was enough to overcome all the obstacles in their path. But as she looked around Margaret's living room at Lucas's family and friends, all watching them with varying degrees of curiosity and judgment, she wondered if they were being naive. The party wound down around 6. Victoria helped Margaret clean up while Lucas got Mia ready to leave, and in the quiet of the kitchen, Margaret spoke. She likes you. Mia. I like her too. She's wonderful. She's been through a lot. Losing her mother at 4, it changed her, made her grow up faster than she should have. Margaret rinsed a plate and handed it to Victoria to dry. Lucas has done an incredible job with her, but she needs stability. She needs to know the people in her life aren't going to leave. I'm not planning to leave. Plans change. Feelings change. I need to know that if things get hard, and they will get hard, you're not going to walk away and break both their hearts. Victoria set down the dish towel. Margaret, I can't promise that Lucas and I will last forever. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise that I'm in this with everything I have. I can promise that if we do end, it won't be because I gave up or stopped trying. And I can promise that no matter what happens between me and Lucas, I won't abandon Mia. She deserves better than that. Margaret studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, that's good enough for now. They finished cleaning in comfortable silence, and when Lucas and Mia came to say goodbye, Mia hugged Victoria like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. See you soon? Mia asked. Definitely. Victoria drove home feeling exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. She'd survived meeting Mia, survived the party, survived Rachel's passive aggression and Margaret's scrutiny. They'd cleared another hurdle. There would be more. There were always more. But for tonight, this was enough. Her phone rang as she was getting ready for bed. Lucas. Hey, she answered. Hey, I just got Mia down. She's in love with the telescope. She wants to set it up tomorrow and look at the moon. I'm glad she likes it. She likes you more. Lucas's voice was warm. Thank you for today. For coming, for being patient with my family, for winning over my daughter. I didn't do anything special. You showed up. In my experience, that's the most special thing anyone can do. Victoria climbed into bed, phone pressed to her ear. Today was good. Hard, but good. Rachel cornered me before you left, tried to tell me I was making a mistake, that you'd get bored and leave, that I should find someone more suitable. What did you say? That Victoria Hale is the most suitable person I've ever met, and if she's willing to put up with my chaos, I'm not stupid enough to let her go. Lucas paused. I love you. I love you too. Victoria closed her eyes. Lucas, Mia asked me if we're going to get married. What did you tell her? That we're still figuring things out. Was that okay? It was perfect, because we are still figuring things out. He was quiet for a moment. But for what it's worth, I've been thinking about it. About a future where you're not just my girlfriend, but my partner, my wife. Victoria's breath caught. Really? Really? Not right now. We need time to make sure this is right, to let Mia adjust, to figure out all the logistics. But someday? Yeah, I want that. Me too, Victoria whispered. Someday. They talked until Victoria was falling asleep, Lucas's voice in her ear the last thing she heard before drifting off. And for the first time since this whole thing started, she let herself believe it might actually work out. The weeks after Mia's birthday party settled into something that felt almost like routine. Victoria started coming to Lucas's house for dinner twice a week, bringing groceries and learning to cook simple meals under his patient instruction. Mia would do homework at the kitchen table while they worked, occasionally looking up to ask Victoria questions about math problems or to share something that happened at school. It was domestic and ordinary, and Victoria had never been happier. But the real test came 3 weeks later when Lucas called her on a Wednesday afternoon, his voice tight with stress. I need a favor. Anything. Mia's school called. She's running a fever, and I'm in the middle of installing cabinets for a client 2 hours away. Mrs. Chen is out of town visiting her daughter, and my mom has that volunteer thing she can't miss. He paused. Could you pick her up? I know it's a lot to ask. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Which school? Lucas gave her the address, and Victoria was already grabbing her keys. Thank you. Really? I owe you. You don't owe me anything. That's not how this works. She made it to Mia's school in 15 minutes and found the girl waiting in the nurse's office, looking small and miserable. The fever had brought red spots to her cheeks, and her eyes were glassy. Hey, sweetheart, Victoria said, crouching down. Your dad's stuck at work, so I'm going to take you home, okay? Mia nodded and reached for Victoria's hand. The simple trust of the gesture made Victoria's chest tight. They drove back to Lucas's house, and Victoria settled Mia on the couch with a blanket and her favorite stuffed bear. She found children's medicine in the bathroom cabinet, reading the dosage instructions 3 times to make sure she got it right, and brought Mia water and crackers. My head hurts, Mia said quietly. I know, Bug. The medicine should help soon. Victoria sat on the edge of the couch, brushing hair off Mia's forehead. Do you want to watch something? Can we watch that baking show you told Dad about? So they did. Victoria sat with Mia curled against her side, half watching contestants stress over soufflés while monitoring the girl's temperature and making sure she drank enough water. Somewhere around episode 3, Mia fell asleep, her head on Victoria's lap, and Victoria stayed perfectly still, afraid to wake her. This was what it would be like, she realized. If she and Lucas made this permanent, if she became part of this family, there would be sick days and school pickups and quiet afternoons watching TV. There would be worry and responsibility and the weight of caring for someone who depended on you completely. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt right. Lucas got home around 6 to find them still on the couch, Mia asleep and Victoria reading work emails on her phone with one hand while the other rested on Mia's back. Hey, he said softly. How is she? Fever broke about an hour ago. She had some crackers and ginger ale. I think it's just a 24-hour thing. Lucas knelt beside the couch, checking Mia's forehead with the back of his hand. Then he looked at Victoria with an expression that made her breath catch. Thank you, he said. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been able to help. You would have figured it out. That's what you do. Maybe, but I'm really glad I didn't have to. He leaned over and kissed her, careful not to disturb Mia. I love you. I love you too. Mia stirred, blinking awake. Dad? Hey, Bug. Feeling better? A little. Victoria took good care of me. Mia sat up, rubbing her eyes. She gave me medicine and let me pick what we watched and didn't make me eat anything gross. Sounds like she's a natural, Lucas said, grinning at Victoria. The domesticity of the moment wrapped around them like a warm blanket, and Victoria understood that this was another threshold crossed. She wasn't just Lucas's girlfriend anymore. She was becoming part of their lives in real, concrete ways. That weekend, Lucas suggested they tell people. Not make a big announcement, but stop hiding. Start posting photos together, going out in public as a couple, letting the world see what they'd been building in private. Are you sure? Victoria asked. They were in her kitchen, making breakfast while Mia set up her telescope in the backyard. Once we go public, there's no taking it back. The press will find out. People will have opinions. People already have opinions. At least this way we're being honest. Lucas flipped a pancake. Unless you're not ready, I don't want to push. I'm ready. I'm just worried about Mia, about photographers showing up at her school or people saying things that hurt her. We'll protect her, set boundaries, hire security if we need to, make sure she knows none of it is her fault. Lucas set down the spatula and turned to face her. Victoria, I'm not going to hide you. I'm not going to pretend this isn't real because some people might be uncomfortable with it. You're important to me. I want everyone to know that. So they did. Lucas posted a photo on social media that night. Victoria and Mia looking through the telescope in the backyard, both of them laughing at something. The caption was simple. My 2 favorite people. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Supportive messages from friends and family mixed with curiosity from strangers and a few nasty comments from people who thought they knew better. But mostly people were happy for them, Margaret called within an hour. I saw the photo. Lucas braced himself. And Mia looks happy. You look happy. That's what matters. Margaret's voice softened. I'm still adjusting, Lucas, but I can see this is real. I can see you love her. I do, Mom. Then I'm happy for you, both of you. It wasn't a ringing endorsement, but it was acceptance. That counted for something. The real challenge came 2 weeks later when one of Victoria's board members called an emergency meeting. She'd been expecting pushback about the relationship, worried that her personal life would become fodder for gossip or concern about her judgment. But what Robert said caught her completely off guard. We need to discuss your restructuring proposal. Victoria had submitted the plan a week ago, buying out certain investors, reorganizing voting shares, essentially removing the board members who questioned every decision she made. It was aggressive and expensive and exactly what she needed to regain full control of her company. "What about it?" she asked carefully. "The other board members and I have discussed it. We think you're making an emotional decision based on personal circumstances rather than sound business strategy." "Personal circumstances?" "Your relationship with Mr. Bennett." Robert's tone was carefully neutral. "We're concerned that his influence is affecting your judgment, that you're becoming reckless." Victoria felt cold anger settle in her chest. "My relationship has nothing to do with my business decisions." "Doesn't it? You've been talking about taking bigger risks, chasing moonshot investments, pushing back against conservative strategies. That's not the Victoria Hale we know." "Maybe the Victoria Hale you know was playing it too safe." She stood, pacing to the window of her office. "I built this company by taking smart risks. Somewhere along the way, I let fear make me cautious. Lucas didn't make me reckless. He reminded me why I started this in the first place. To make money? To build something that matters. To change things. To prove that doing the right thing and being successful aren't mutually exclusive." Victoria turned back to face the screen where Robert's face looked out at her. "I'm going forward with the restructuring, with or without your support. If you do this, some of us will sell our shares. Walk away. Then walk away. I'm done letting other people's fear dictate my choices." She ended the call and immediately called Lucas. "I think I just blew up my board," she said when he answered. "What happened?" Victoria explained the conversation, the accusations about Lucas's influence, her decision to push forward anyway. When she finished, Lucas was quiet. "Are you sure about this?" he asked finally. "I don't want to be the reason you make a choice you'll regret." "You're not the reason. You're the catalyst. There's a difference." Victoria sat down, suddenly exhausted. "I've been letting other people tell me how to run my company for too long. It's time I trusted my own instincts again." "Even if it costs you?" "Especially if it costs me. The things worth having are expensive. You taught me that." Lucas laughed. "I'm pretty sure I said the things worth building are the hardest, not the most expensive." "Same principle. Money, effort, risk. It all costs something. The question is whether what you're building is worth the price." "And is it, your company?" Victoria thought about it. "Yes, but not because of the money or the success or the power, because it's mine. I built it from nothing, and I'm not going to let fear or other people's doubts take it away from me." "Good. Then fight for it." The restructuring took 6 weeks of brutal negotiations, lawyers arguing over terms, investors demanding concessions. Victoria held firm on what mattered and compromised where she could, and in the end, she emerged with majority control and a board that actually supported her vision instead of questioning it at every turn. It cost her. 3 board members walked away, taking their investments with them. The company's value dipped temporarily as news of the shakeup spread. Victoria's stress levels hit new heights, and she spent more than one night lying awake worrying she'd made a catastrophic mistake. But Lucas was there through all of it, bringing her dinner when she forgot to eat, listening to her vent about lawyers and contracts and stubborn investors, reminding her why she'd started this fight in the first place. And one night, when the restructuring was finally complete and Victoria was celebrating with expensive whiskey in her empty office, Lucas showed up with Mia. "What are you doing here?" Victoria asked, surprised. "We wanted to congratulate you properly," Lucas said. Mia was holding something behind her back, grinning. "What's that, sweetheart?" Mia pulled out a handmade card covered in crayon drawings of stars and rocket ships. Inside, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, it said, "Congratulations on winning. Love, Mia." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Bug. This is perfect. Dad said you were fighting for something important. I wanted you to know I'm proud of you." Victoria knelt down and hugged Mia tight. Over the girl's shoulder, she met Lucas's eyes and saw everything she needed to see. Pride, love, support, partnership. This was what it meant to build a life with someone. Not just the romantic dinners and stolen kisses, but the showing up when things were hard, the celebrating victories together, the knowing you weren't facing the world alone anymore. "I'm proud of you too," Victoria told Mia. "You know why? Because you're brave and kind, and you never give up, even when things are scary. That's what really matters." They went to dinner at a little Italian place near Victoria's office. Nothing fancy, just the three of them sharing pasta and laughing at Mia's stories about school. And Victoria realized this was exactly what happiness looked like. Not the big moments or grand gestures, but ordinary evenings with the people you loved. A month later, on a Saturday morning in January, Lucas woke Victoria early. Get dressed, warm clothes, we're going somewhere. Where? It's a surprise, Mia's already at my mom's. Victoria dressed in jeans and her warmest sweater, and Lucas drove them out of the city into the mountains. They wound through narrow roads covered in frost until he pulled off at a scenic overlook that showed the valley spread out below them. This is where I proposed to Jenna, Lucas said quietly. 10 years ago, right here. I was so nervous I nearly dropped the ring. Victoria's heart clenched. Lucas, let me finish. He turned to face her. I brought you here because I need you to understand something. Jenna was my first love. She gave me Mia and 7 good years and memories I'll carry forever. But she's gone. And for a long time, I thought that was it for me. One love, one chance at happiness. And now? Now I know I was wrong. Love isn't finite. It doesn't run out. You can love someone completely, lose them, and still have room in your heart to love someone else just as much. Lucas took her hands. I love you, Victoria Hale. I love your brilliant mind and your terrible cooking and the way you've learned to braid Mia's hair, even though you claim you're bad at it. I love that you're not perfect, that you work too hard and stress about things you can't control and sometimes forget to return phone calls. I love all of it. Victoria was crying now, not even trying to stop the tears. I'm not proposing, Lucas continued. Not yet. We need more time, and I want to do it right when I do. But I needed you to know that this is real for me, that I see a future with you, that when I think about the rest of my life, you're in it. I see you in mine too, Victoria managed. You and Mia both. I never thought I wanted a family, but now I can't imagine my life without you. Good, because you're stuck with us. They stood there overlooking the valley as the sun rose higher, painting everything gold, and Victoria understood that this was the real beginning. Everything before had been prologue, the meeting, the falling in love, the obstacles overcome. This was where the actual story started. The months that followed weren't perfect. There were arguments about money. Victoria wanted to pay for things. Lucas insisted on contributing his fair share. They had to find a balance that respected both their needs. There were scheduling conflicts when Victoria's work demanded she travel, and Lucas had to juggle Mia's care. There were moments when the differences in their worlds felt overwhelming. But there were more good moments than bad ones. Mia's spring recital where she played violin, and Lucas cried, and Victoria recorded the whole thing on her phone. Sunday mornings, making breakfast together, flour everywhere and pancakes burned, but everyone laughing anyway. Date nights that ranged from fancy restaurants to pizza on the couch. The slow, steady building of a life together. In April, Margaret invited them to Sunday dinner and afterward pulled Victoria aside. I owe you an apology, Margaret said. For what? For doubting this. For questioning your intentions. For worrying that you'd hurt my son. I was protecting him, but I was also being unfair to you. Margaret took Victoria's hand. You've been good for him. Good for both of them. And you've been patient with me while I figured out how to accept this change. Thank you for that. You were protecting your family, Victoria said. I understand that. I'd do the same in your position. You're part of that family now, you know, whether we made it official or not. Margaret smiled. I hope you know that. Victoria hugged her, and something that had been tense between them finally relaxed. They were going to be okay. All of them. In June, Lucas finished a major commission, custom built-ins for a historic home that had been featured in architecture magazines. The client was thrilled, the photos were stunning, and suddenly Lucas's phone was ringing with new requests. I need to hire help, he told Victoria over dinner. I can't keep up with demand on my own. So hire someone. It's not that simple. I'd need a bigger workshop, more tools, money to pay someone while we're ramping up. Lucas ran his hand through his hair. It's a lot of risk. What if it wasn't risky? Victoria set down her fork. What if I invested in expanding your business? No. Lucas, I said no. I'm not taking your money. It wouldn't be charity. It would be an investment. A loan if you prefer. with interest and a formal contract. We could structure it however makes you comfortable. Victoria leaned forward. You're sitting on an opportunity to grow something amazing. Don't let pride get in the way. They argued about it for a week, Lucas insisting he didn't want to be seen as someone who was using Victoria for her money. Victoria pointing out that investing in people she believed in was literally her job. Finally, they compromised. Victoria would provide the capital as a formal business loan with market rate interest, and Lucas would pay it back as the business grew. Within 6 months, Lucas had hired 2 apprentices and moved into a larger workshop space. The business was thriving, and more importantly, Lucas was happy. He was building something that would outlast him, teaching young people the craft his grandfather had taught him. Victoria watched him work one afternoon in September, showing one of the apprentices the proper way to cut a dovetail joint, and she thought about how far they'd both come. 2 people from completely different worlds who'd somehow found each other and built something neither could have created alone. That night, after Mia was asleep and they were sitting on Lucas's back porch watching the stars, he turned to her. Remember when I said I wasn't proposing yet? Victoria's heart jumped. Yes. I think I'm ready now. If you are. Lucas, wait, let me do this properly. He pulled a small box from his pocket and got down on one knee. Victoria Hale, you came into my life when I wasn't looking for anyone. You saw past my defenses and my grief and my fear that I'd never love anyone the way I loved Jenna. You proved me wrong. You showed me that love isn't about replacing what you lost. It's about building something new with someone who sees all of you and chooses to stay anyway. Victoria was crying, both hands pressed to her mouth. You've become part of our family in ways I never expected. Mia loves you. My mother loves you. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you build the rest of your life with us? Yes, Victoria said through tears. Yes, absolutely, yes. The ring was simple. A single diamond on a plain gold band, nothing flashy or ostentatious. It was perfect. They told Mia the next morning over breakfast. She screamed so loud the neighbors probably heard, then ran around the kitchen yelling, I'm getting a new mom, until Lucas caught her and reminded her to use her inside voice. Can I be in the wedding? Mia asked, bouncing with excitement. You can be whatever you want, Victoria said. Flower girl, junior bridesmaid, chief wedding planner? All of them! I want to do all of them! They called Margaret next, who cried and said she was happy and asked when the wedding would be. They hadn't talked about that yet, so they promised to figure it out and let her know. The engagement announcement made news. Not front page. Victoria wasn't quite that famous. But enough that her phone started ringing with journalists wanting interviews and well-wishers sending congratulations. Some of the coverage was kind, focusing on the unexpected romance between the billionaire and the carpenter. Some was less kind, questioning Victoria's judgment or implying Lucas was after her money. They ignored the negative press and focused on the positive, on planning a wedding that would blend their worlds without losing who they were, on helping Mia adjust to the idea of Victoria becoming a permanent part of their lives, on the million small details that came with combining 2 households into one. They decided Victoria would move into Lucas's house rather than him moving into hers. The big modern house in Belmont Heights had never felt like home to her, and Lucas's modest craftsman had everything that mattered. History, warmth, the feeling of actually being lived in. Victoria put her house on the market and started the process of downsizing a life she'd built for one into a space shared with 3. Are you sure about this? Lucas asked one night while they were packing boxes in her office. You're giving up a lot. I'm not giving up anything that matters. Square footage and marble countertops don't make a home. People do. Victoria taped up a box of books. Besides, I like your house. It feels real. It needs a new roof. Then we'll get a new roof. We'll also probably need to add on a room for me to work from home and maybe update the kitchen and definitely do something about that bathroom tile. Lucas laughed. So basically rebuild the whole house. Basically. But we'll do it together. Make it ours instead of just yours or just mine. The wedding was set for October, exactly 1 year after they'd first met. They kept it small, 50 people, mostly family and close friends, in Margaret's backyard under a canopy of fall leaves. Mia was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, practicing her walk for weeks beforehand. Margaret cried through the entire ceremony. Lucas's hands shook when he slid the ring onto Victoria's finger. Victoria's vows were simple. I promise to show up, even when it's hard. I promise to choose you every day. I promise to build a life with you that's worth more than anything I could build alone. Lucas's were simpler. I promise to love you for exactly who you are. I promise to be your partner in everything. I promise to make you laugh, even when you're stressed about work. And I promise that our coffee will always be terrible because I refuse to let you win at everything. Everyone laughed, Victoria included, and when they kissed, Mia cheered loudest of all. The reception was casual, barbecue and beer, and a playlist that ranged from country to classic rock. Victoria danced with Lucas, then with Mia, then with her new father-in-law's brother, who told terrible jokes and made her laugh until her sides hurt. She talked to Margaret about the renovations they were planning, and to Lucas's apprentices about the business, and to Mia's friends about school and homework, and whether Victoria was really a billionaire or if that was just a rumor. Really a billionaire, Victoria confirmed. But don't worry, I'm not going to act like one. That's good, one of the kids said seriously. Rich people in movies are usually mean. I'll try not to be mean. You're already nice, Mia interjected. That's why Dad married you. Later, when the party had wound down and most of the guests had left, Victoria found Lucas sitting on the porch steps watching the last of the sunset. Hey, husband, she said, sitting beside him. Hey, wife. He put his arm around her shoulders. Hell of a day. The best day. Victoria leaned against him. Though I'm pretty sure your mother is still crying. She cries at everything, weddings, graduations, dog food commercials. Lucas kissed the top of her head. But yeah, she's happy. We all are. Even with everything we had to go through to get here, all the complications and judgment and obstacles, especially because of that. The hard things are worth more, remember? He pulled back to look at her. I meant what I said in my vows. You're worth everything, Victoria. So are you. You and Mia both. They sat there as darkness fell, watching the first stars appear. Inside, they could hear Mia laughing at something Margaret said, the sound drifting through the open windows. This was their life now, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. The months after the wedding settled into a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. Victoria worked from the home office they'd added to the house, taking calls with investors while Mia did homework at the desk they'd installed specifically for her. Lucas expanded his business, taking on bigger commissions and teaching his apprentices the craft he loved. Mia thrived with 2 parents instead of 1, her confidence growing as she realized her family wasn't broken. It had just changed shape. There were challenges, of course. Moments when Victoria's work demanded she travel and she hated being away from Lucas and Mia. Times when Lucas felt inadequate next to Victoria's success and had to be reminded that building beautiful things with his hands was just as valuable as building companies. Instances when Mia tested boundaries, pushing to see if Victoria would leave like her mother had, and Victoria had to prove again and again that she was staying. But they worked through it. They talked, compromised, forgave each other's mistakes, and kept showing up. Because that's what love was. Not the grand gestures or perfect moments, but the daily choice to keep building something together even when it was hard. One night in December, almost a year after Lucas had first walked into Victoria's house to fix her cabinets, they were making dinner together while Mia set the table. The kitchen was warm. Something was burning slightly in the oven because Victoria had gotten distracted, and Mia was singing off-key to the radio. Lucas looked at Victoria and grinned. You know what's funny? What? My mom sent me to your house to fix cabinets, and instead I ended up here, married to you, building a life I never imagined I could have again. Best carpentry job you ever took? By far. He kissed her, not caring that they were in the middle of cooking or that Mia was watching with exaggerated disgust. Though technically I did fix your cabinets, so I fulfilled the job requirements. You did more than that. Victoria turned off the stove and faced him fully. You taught me that there's more to life than work and success and proving I'm worth something. You taught me what it means to be part of a family. You gave me a home. We gave each other a home, Lucas corrected. That's how this works. Mia came over and wedged herself between them, wrapping her arms around both their waists. Group hug! They stood there in the kitchen, the 3 of them tangled together, and Victoria thought about how far she'd come from the lonely woman in the empty mansion. She'd been so focused on building a business empire that she'd forgotten to build a life. Lucas had reminded her that success wasn't measured in dollars or companies or board seats, but in moments like this, ordinary evenings with the people you loved, messy kitchens and burned dinners and off-key singing. The cabinets he'd built in her old office had been beautiful, crafted to last for generations. But this, the family they'd built together, the love they'd chosen to nurture, the home they'd created from two broken pieces, this would last even longer. Because the things worth building, the things that truly mattered, weren't made of wood or nails or expensive materials. They were made of choice and commitment and the courage to keep showing up even when the world said you didn't fit together. Victoria had learned that true wealth wasn't in her bank account. It was here, in this kitchen, with this man who saw her and this child who trusted her, and this life they were creating one ordinary moment at a time. And that was worth more than all the money in the world.